Chapter 145. Zhenjin's protection of the big guy did not diminish his prestige. Perhaps the others did not understand, but they still worshipped and respected Zhenjin. Needle Cloud was a divine knight with the strongest individual combat strength. He was also a holy knight, the heir of the 100 Needles family, and the future lord of White Sand City. He also had a group of followers who always followed him closely. At the same time, the most capable competitor, Zhong Gu, also expressed his obedience. Zhen Jin's leadership was unshakable. After comforting the wounded, Zhen Jin received a lot of words of gratitude. It was the big man, not the Needle King, who was hated and guarded against. In fact, if Zhen Jin had not knocked out the big guy, they would have been in more danger. It was Zhen Jin who saved them. If the big guy was an unforgivable murderer, perhaps some people could blame Zhen Jin. Was this the justice of a holy knight? But the big guy was sick, and this illness had been around for a long time, so the shipwright did not hide it and said it long ago. Although the people's mentality was like this, after his own condolences, Zhen Jin secretly ordered Shi Suo to arrange for some crew members to take the initiative to communicate with the wounded and carry out a certain degree of guidance. Speaking of which, the crazy warning is a very good reason. Zhen Jin pointed at Shi Suo. I don't need you to lie, this will only lead to flaws and make mistakes. Let the crew members who have been with the big guy for a long time tell the truth. I understand. Sir, I promise to complete this task. Shi Suo was very excited. Speaking of which, he had already pledged allegiance to Zhen Jin, but he did not have a chance to show off. In terms of strength, he was not as good as Zhong Gu. In terms of loyalty, he was not as good as Lan Zhao or Baiya. He did not have Tsang Su's wisdom, nor did he have Zidi's ability to make potions. Shi Suo was under a lot of pressure. He wanted to stand out, but was overshadowed by the people around him. For the first time, Zhen Jin assigned a mission to Shi Suo. This is a private job. Shi Suo was excited. He vaguely felt that he had found a way out. That's right, I can do some private and dirty work for my lord. Why didn't I think of that before? Even if Sir is a temple knight and abides by the path of the night, your heart is bright. But there will always be some things that are inconvenient for you to do, such as this. For most people, the big guy's illness was a bad thing. But for Shi Suo, it was an opportunity for him. This is a good thing. It will allow me to deepen the Lord Zhen Jin's impression of me. I must do this well. Shi Suo was excited and started to take action. And on Zhen Jin's side, after being interrupted by the big guy's illness, he found it harder and harder to tell his secrets to ZD. His days seemed to have returned to how they were before. Every night, he would undergo arduous training. The first half of the day would be used to catch up on sleep, and the second half of the day would be used to clear out the beasts. Every time he succeeded in hunting, he would bring back prey that would continuously strengthen his authority and position. He constantly reminded everyone that he was a powerful leader, and put an end to any thoughts of offending him. At the same time, he also quietly increased his vigilance. After all, the big guy's illness would give him a warning. But after that, no disaster occurred. And almost every time after dinner, Zhen Jin would go to visit the wounded, and sometimes bring medicine. The medicine was made by ZD and distributed by Zhen Jin himself. This act of distributing medicine seemed very small, but in fact it had a deep meaning. The wounded were in urgent need of medicine, and in the whole camp, it seemed that only Zhen Jin could distribute medicine. According to the words of the Empire's East, this was called sending charcoal in snowy weather. The small medicine, after being distributed by Zhen Jin, was able to display its value beyond its own. But, without the big guy, the efficiency of the shipbuilding decreased by a lot. Just as Tsang Su said, the big guy played an important role in the work. Almost a week later, Zhen Jin once again came to the grass hut on the hillside, and discussed with the shipwright about letting the big guy resume his work. The shipwright did not hesitate and immediately agreed. because these days, he saw very clearly that Zhen Jin's continuous consolation dispelled the grief and anger of the wounded. And behind the actions of Shi Suo and the other crew members, there was also Zhen Jin's shadow. Sir, you are a wise leader. The shipwright was now willing to submit to Zhen Jin. Once, when he woke up in the camp, he heard that Zhen Jin had accepted Zhong Guo, Sandao and the others, and was very worried, thinking that Zhen Jin might be too young. Along the way, the shipwright's view of Zhen Jin had greatly changed. Now, the shipwright completely realized, the knight in front of him, although young, was definitely not a simple believer. He upheld the way of the knight, but at the same time, he did not let down the identity and bloodline of the nobility. He had profound tactics. You have to continue tomorrow, you have to work hard. If someone scolds you, what will you do? The shipwright asked the big guy in front of Zhen Jin. Just pretend I didn't hear anything. The big guy replied. What if they hit you? The shipwright asked again. If it doesn't hurt, like throwing stones at me, I won't scream. If it hurts, I'll scream. If someone hurts me and makes me bleed, I'll scream for my father. The big guy replied smoothly. The shipwright nodded in satisfaction. He turned to Zhen Jin and guaranteed. Sir, the big guy is already prepared. Actually, he's not stupid. He knows how to deal with it. Actually, I've already told him about it. Don't worry. Zhen Jin stared at the big guy in the straw hut. The big guy's body was obviously huge, but he was currently lying on the straw hut, curled up. It could be seen that the shipwright had been educating him for the past few days. At the same time, Zhen Jin could easily guess that the big guy's life on the pig kiss was filled with rejection and disgust. He was often scolded and even beaten. Most of the sailors had bad tempers, so they would definitely throw things at the big guy. And if the big guy was not in pain, he would not scream. There were only two weapons he could use to resist. One was to scream. The other was to scream for his father. The big guy curled up in the straw hut was the same as before. His hair was disheveled, his mouth full of yellow teeth, his appearance was ugly, and if one looked carefully, his head was big and his body was small, and he was somewhat deformed. It was as if he had lived on the ship for a long time, and was used to bending down and shrinking his head, or as if he was afraid of Zhen Jin. His gaze was evasive, and he was timid. Just based on his appearance, the big guy was not likable and even disgusting. This was human nature. But now, when Zhen Jin heard all of this and saw all of this, his emotions were extremely complicated. He was not feeling well. Other than the position of pity, there was something else that was stuck in his heart, making him want to express it, but unable to do so. It made him anxious. In the next few days, Zhen Jin paid close attention to the big guy. There were no accidents. The big guy restrained himself, and took the initiative to make way. If someone came close to him, he would quickly hide in the corner. His huge body, when curled up, was somewhat comical. Many people could not help but laugh, and their mood gradually relaxed. But Zhen Jin, who was observing all of this, could not laugh. His heart became heavier and heavier. As if he had received the shipwright's instructions, the big guy worked even harder. With the big guy's participation, the progress of the shipbuilding work increased by leaps and bounds. On this day, the weather was clear. Everyone was gathered together. In the empty space of the small valley, they were carrying out an important task. Yes, just like that, slow down a bit, stick the mast into this square hole, the shipwright instructed. You have to be slow. The shipwright was still worried, and reminded him again. Under his father's instructions, the big guy's expression was very serious. He carefully inserted the mast into the hole in the keel. Very good! The shipwright was overjoyed and praised. The mast had to be fixed on the keel. Only by doing so could they obtain the most stable mast. If they were only inserted on the deck, after the mast was raised, it would be torn apart by the wind, and could even endanger the entire ship. The first mast had been inserted. According to the ship's blueprint, this was the front mast. Good, next, it's the rear mast. Chem? The shipwright looked up. He noticed the big guy was strangely silent, suddenly very abnormal. His head was lowered. His hand was still holding the mast. His entire body was motionless. Jean immediately squinted his eyes. He felt a faint sense of danger. The shipwright shouted a few times, but the big guy didn't answer. His expression also became panicked. The big guy started to pant, like an exhausted old bull. He grimaced, his eyes becoming redder and redder. Damn it! Seeing this, the shipwright's heart sank, but he still didn't give up, still shouting. Calm down, quickly calm down, you little bastard. Run, he's going crazy again. An experienced sailor shouted, turned around and ran. In a flash, the empty space of the valley became a mess. Roar! The big guy roared. He suddenly pulled, and threw the mast that he had just inserted out. The mast hit the mountain wall, the front half broke, but the back half stuck into the mountain rock. The big guy swung his fist at the keel again. But at this time, Jean went against the flow. His body, like lightning, directly jumped behind the big guy, and once again hit the back of his neck, knocking him out. Everything had just started, and it was already over. The situation was still under Jean's control. The keel is fine, it's fine. The shipwright shouted loudly, feeling very lucky. The rest of the people gathered around, all of them still in shock, their hearts still beating fast. The big guy went crazy again. How many days has it been? No, I can't work with him anymore. I don't want to die without knowing why. His usual behavior, it's all a disguise. We can't be deceived by him anymore. He has the blood of giants. I heard that many giants eat people. This kind of illness can't be cured. Didn't you hear what the sailor said? We can't keep this big idiot by our side. Who knows when he'll go crazy again? Jean stood on the big guy's back. His strict gaze swept around. The discussion immediately quieted down. All right, the young leader shouted. Today's work is done, go eat. He then pointed at a few former mercenaries and Lan Zhao, and ordered them to drag the big guy back to the straw hut. Lord Jean, I can put the big guy in shackles. The shipwright ran to Jean's side with an anxious expression. He took the initiative to say, when we were on the ship, the big guy often wore shackles. He's used to it. Jean frowned. He patted the shipwright's shoulder. Don't worry, I don't blame you, nor do I have any intention of blaming the big guy. It's just a front mast, it's easy to make. Hearing Jean's words, the shipwright immediately let out a sigh of relief, but he still insisted on putting the big guy in shackles. Speaking from the bottom of his heart, Jean was not willing to put the big guy in shackles. He was disgusted, but other than that, what else could he do? Jean privately called Shi Suo. Do you know what I want you to do? I understand, sir. This time it's even simpler than the last time. We didn't have any casualties, sir. You're really wise. Look at how scared these people are. They're too cowardly. A bit of mockery and ridicule should be able to stimulate their courage. Seeing that Shi Suo understood his meaning, Jean nodded with satisfaction. Go do it. Jean needed the big guy to work, but not only because of the large amount of work involved in building the ship, or because he needed to appease the shipwright. The young knight also had a deeper motivation. He wanted to help the big guy. He wanted to protect the big guy. He wanted to find a way for the big guy to live in harmony with the others. On the night of the big guy's illness, an unexpected thing happened. Rumble. The earth trembled, stones rolled, and giant trees fell one after another. Most people woke up from their sleep. They ran out of their caves and out of the small valley in panic. Earthquake. Chapter 146. There's actually an earthquake. Jean quickly rushed back from the wilderness. When the earthquake happened, he was still training his crocodile-headed hammertail form. What made Jean relieved was that when he rushed back to the small valley, he did not see a chaotic scene. Although he was not there, Song Su, ZD, and Zhong Gu worked together to quickly stabilize the situation and began to clean up the camp. The scale of the earthquake was not large, and it came and went quickly. The empty space in the valley that Zhenjin was worried about, the keel and the masts were not damaged. The wooden roof above the construction site was the biggest contributor this time. It firmly blocked the falling rubble and protected the results of everyone's work. After inspection, a lot of rubble was piled up on the wooden roof. Many places were smashed with holes, and even more wooden planks were full of cracks. Mu Ban reported to Zhenjin with a dignified expression, "Sir, the wooden roof not only needs to be renovated, but also needs to be reinforced." Zhong Gu frowned. "We have been on this island for so long, but we have never encountered an earthquake." Even the strong half-beastman felt powerless in the face of such a natural disaster. ZD said, "Is there only one earthquake? To tell you the truth, I have a bad feeling about this. If there are more earthquakes, then our current residence will be very dangerous." Everyone lived in caves. If there was a stronger earthquake, it would cause the mountain to collapse, and these people sleeping in the caves would basically be crushed to death or buried alive. Also, the shipbuilding would become a big problem. Originally, they arranged the construction site in the small valley to use the terrain to build a dock, saving a lot of labor, materials, and time. But now, if the earthquake continued, the small valley would become a dangerous place. It was far worse than an open or flat area. This time, only some small stones on the mountain collapsed. If the earthquake was more violent, large stones would roll down and the ship would suffer great damage. Zhenjin sighed, then said firmly, "This is the effect of the big guy going crazy. He is warning us." Song Su, who was at the side, was stunned for a moment before he nodded in agreement. "That's true. It seems like the big guy has a decisive role. His relapse is a great thing for us." Zhenjin looked at Song Su with admiration and said, "Don't stay in the cave tonight. Let's stay in tents in the wilderness for now. From tomorrow onwards, we need to clear out a large area of the forest around the valley. If we want to make a slide, at least part of it will extend out of the valley. If an earthquake happens, we can quickly move the important hull components out." After Zhenjin finished speaking, he glanced around and then stopped at Shi Suo. Shi Suo's expression changed slightly. He immediately understood that Zhenjin wanted him to continue the promotion. He nodded slightly and left quietly after greeting Zhenjin. Zhenjin knew very well that it was unreliable to say that the big guy's craziness could warn them this time. This was an excuse, but it could change everyone's impression of the big guy. Zhenjin needed the big guy to return to work. He needed such an important labor force. Others might have some complaints, but Zhenjin did not care about them in this situation. The most basic responsibility of a leader was to distinguish between the important and the urgent. To be honest, I feel the same as President ZD. The earthquake has never happened before, but now there is one. It seems like something is happening in a place that we don't know about. Everything is starting to go wrong. Next, we need to do our best to build a ship that can sail as quickly as possible." After saying this, Zhenjin looked at the shipwright with a sharp gaze. "No matter what method you use, you have to shorten the construction period. If you can cut corners, then cut corners. We need a ship that can sail first. After that, we can work on the ship until it is time to sail." The shipwright quickly bowed and accepted the order. "I understand, sir." The shipwright worked through the night and did not rest to rush out a new ship blueprint. It was different from the original blueprint. The new ship was 1/5 smaller, and many cabins were removed. Originally, everyone had hammocks to sleep in, but now there were only some grass mats left where the hammocks were. A complete mast was originally connected. Now, the mast height was reduced by at least half. In the future, if they wanted to increase the mast height, they would have to be joined together during the voyage. In the original blueprint, there were more than 10 ballistae in addition to the cannons. But now there were still 3 cannons, and the number of ballistae had been reduced by half. The cannons were salvaged from the wreckage of the Pig's Kiss. The original plan was to build more than 10 ballistae to replace the cannons to a certain extent. It was impossible to sail without firepower. Whether it was the fishmen, sea monsters, or pirates, they were all a huge threat to long-distance sailing ships. But now there were no more ballistae. As for the ballistae in the blueprint, they were all in the camp's control. There is no need to make so many sails. We can let people contribute their own clothes, and these clothes can be pieced together to form simple sails. Actually, it is also possible for men to go shirtless. In order to reduce the construction time to the greatest extent, the shipwright also went all out. Zhen Jin's order was quickly passed down. The people were also frightened by the earthquake, and were even more enthusiastic about the work of building the ship. During the day, Zhen Jin even began to guard the empty space in the valley, personally supervising everyone's work. With Zhen Jin there, everyone felt at ease, and no longer feared that the big guy would go crazy again. Everyone felt a strong pressure in their hearts, causing the efficiency of the new ship to increase by a large margin. In the following week, the big guy did not go crazy again. The earthquake also did not happen again. But the food consumption was very high. Everyone was really working hard. Many people took the initiative to continue working at night. They felt that they had too much time to sleep and rest. After all, the construction of the new ship was related to everyone's lives. Zhen Jin personally supervised the construction site during the day. The masts were placed on the keel. The beams were set up, together with the frame. The prototype of the new ship could be seen. The construction of the sails was very fast, mainly because of the large amount of spider webs. Just as the shipwright had estimated, the spider webs of the blade spiders were very suitable to be one of the main materials for the sails. When the third side of the sails was built, the earthquake happened again. But the big guy did not go crazy. No one cared about this. In fact, Shi Suo had already pointed out the inaccuracy of the mad scientist's prediction in the propaganda of the ship's crew. This island was becoming more and more dangerous, and the people were most concerned about whether they could escape from here. They prayed that the earthquake would not happen again, but reality was the opposite of their expectations. In the following period of time, the earthquake not only became more frequent, but the scale of each one also became bigger. The wooden roof had to be reinforced many times, but in the end it could not hold up anymore. Zhen Jin could only order the people to move the prototype of the new ship outside the valley. The forest outside was completely cut down and burned, forming a new construction site. The new construction site was completely open, and there was no time to build a dock. In fact, because of the earthquake, the dock would also collapse and hit the prototype of the new ship. What was difficult was that, other than the earthquake, there was also the rain. Humidity was the biggest enemy for ship construction. The hull of the ship especially needed to be dry, and the water in the wood needed to be removed. Zidi's medicine was very useful. In addition, the people dismantled the tents and assembled them. In the rainy weather, they built a giant tent and worked inside. When the weather cleared up, they dismantled the tent and let the prototype of the new ship dry under the sun, trying their best to remove the water inside. When the earthquake struck for the 8th time, everyone was shocked to see a pillar of lava shooting up into the sky as the earth shook and the mountains swayed. According to Tsang Su's estimation, Zhen Jin and the others were at the edge of the island, and the volcano was at the center of the island, or even the center. From Zhen Jin's position, he could see the spectacular scene of the volcano erupting, so the real scene of the volcano must be even more terrifying. It's the end of the world. Can we really escape from here? If this island sinks tomorrow, I won't be surprised. Everyone was anxious. Realizing this, Zhen Jin held a bonfire banquet not long after. He gave a public speech, using his identity as a divine knight, the empire, glory, and achievements to boost everyone's morale. The speech had a clear effect. When the people saw Zhen Jin, They once again realized that they had such a reliable leader by their side. Zhenjin was not only powerful, but also noble. He promised that he would not give up on anyone, and everyone believed his words. The smell of barbecued meat assailed their nostrils, and more than 10 bottles of rum were also provided. Everyone was given very little alcohol, but the wonderful taste was intoxicating. The nerves that had been tense all this time were now relieved, and the frowning eyebrows gradually relaxed, and the chatter and laughter increased. Zhenjin carried a large piece of barbecued meat to the bonfire in the corner. This was where the big guy and the shipwright were. Zhenjin handed the barbecued meat to the big guy. The big guy did not dare to take it, and only after being scolded by the shipwright did he timidly take it. You have done very well these days. Without you, the ship would not have been built so quickly. Continue to work hard. Under everyone's gaze, Zhenjin encouraged the big guy. The big guy curled up his body, sitting in his seat, seeing Zhenjin smile at him. He quickly lowered his head in embarrassment, staring at the barbecued meat in his hand, not knowing what to say. Zhenjin did not stay for long. After a while, he turned and left. When the shipwright respectfully sent him off, he sighed with emotion. "Sir, you are truly different from the others. I have never seen such a noble person like you." The old father sincerely thanked him, his voice choked, his eyes slightly red. Zhenjin patted his shoulder, looked around, and saw that everyone's attention was on him. He raised his voice. "Everyone has a place on this ship, no one will be left behind. In other words, we are all on the same boat. I know there are differences between us. Differences in status, bloodline, appearance, personality, all kinds of differences. But these differences should not become the reason for our suspicion, opposition, and internal friction. We should be tightly united. Only this way can we maximize our chances of escaping. We are all on the same side." Jin Zhen said the last sentence in a particularly emphatic tone. As expected, his impromptu speech once again won the cheers of the crowd. Many people found that they fell in love with Zhenjin's speech, and were very willing to listen to Zhenjin speak a few more words. Zhenjin's words comforted their panicked hearts, calmed them down, and filled them with hope and motivation again. ZD stared at the young leader. Sang Su had an approving smile. Bai Ye's fanatical gaze seemed to be on fire, while Lan Zhao was silent and reserved. He Wan quietly clenched his fist. Sandao, who had always been calm, was also a little dazed. On the same side? Zhonggu looked at the bonfire in front of him. These 3 words made him recall a scene from the past. He fell on the cold tiles. His head was firmly stepped on by a foot. On the same side? The youth who stepped on Zhonggu said in a sharp voice, "Ha! You actually said that you and we are on the same side?" The young Zhonggu struggled, but could not resist the strength of the youth in front of him. He forced himself to speak. "We have the same blood flowing in our veins, we have the same father, we are brothers and sisters, aren't we on the same side?" As soon as he said that, Zhonggu felt the strength of the foot stepping on his head increase. The luxurious boots even ground hard on Zhongji's temple. "Shut up! You bastard!" The youth who stepped on him shouted angrily. The other youths who were watching also spoke up. "Who is your brother and sister? You were born in dirty soil, how can you stand shoulder to shoulder with us? You do have a noble bloodline, but that is precisely your tragedy. Because this shows the essence of your inferiority and incompetence. You are the disgrace of our family. You are a stain on our family's reputation. Bastard! A mere half-beastman wants to stand shoulder to shoulder with us? In your dreams." Chapter 147. Young Zhonggu slowly opened his eyes. His blurred vision became clear. He saw the beautiful floor tiles. The pain in his body made his memory clear. He had been beaten up by his half-brothers and sisters and had fainted. Silent tears flowed from his eyes. Despair, anger, hatred, confusion, all kinds of emotions drowned young Zhong-gu. He curled up his body and sobbed softly. Footsteps suddenly came, and finally stopped in front of Zhong-gu. Zhong-gu vaguely saw a pair of boots in his blurred vision due to tears. Sigh. The owner of the boots let out a deep sigh. Just a sigh was enough for Mang-gu to understand the identity of the person who had come. The next moment, he was pulled up by the person and stood up. "Teacher!" Zhong-gu called out helplessly. The teacher stared at him. He did not hug young Zhong-gu into his arms to comfort him, but handed him a sword. "Continue to practice the sword," the teacher said. Huff, huff, huff. The middle-aged Zhong-gu spread his feet as wide as his shoulders. He held the wooden handle of the white bone hammer with both hands, and kept making vertical and downward slashing movements. This was one of the most basic movements in swordsmanship. Zhong-gu did it meticulously. The huge and heavy bone hammer in his hands was as light as straw. What made the swordsman even more moved was that every movement he made was like a copy of the previous movement, no matter if it was the angle of the slashing, the speed, or the height of the bone hammer at the top and bottom. There was no change. After making 300 slashing movements like this, the powerful half-beast man was sweating all over. Many strands of his long brown hair were wet with sweat and stuck to his forehead. The banquet had already ended. There was no wind or moon in the middle of the night. Zhong-gu was standing at the edge of the temporary camp. Behind him was a bright bonfire, and in front of him was an endless deep rainforest. Zhenjin said, "One of our own." It made Zhong-gu remember the past. Under his silent and calm expression, there was an irritated heart. Every time this happened, Zhenjin would practice his swordsmanship. As long as it involved swordsmanship, even the most basic downward slashing movement, it could attract his attention, making him focus all his attention and eliminate all the complicated thoughts. Zhong-ji's restless heart gradually calmed down. The boring swordsmanship movements, in his eyes, were almost entertainment. One of our own? It's just that the situation forced me to. Zhong-ji's heart. He put the bone hammer on the ground and sighed in his heart. But the next moment, his ears trembled slightly, and his face suddenly changed. Faintly he seemed to hear a wolf's howl. The night passed. After receiving the information from Zhong-gu, Jin personally led a team to investigate. 50,000 meters away from the edge of the valley, Jin and the others found a large area of messy beast prints. There are the paw prints of a monkey-tailed brown bear, the hoof prints of a mighty white rhinoceros, and the snake tracks of a crocodile-head hammertail centipede. It's definitely the magical beast army. Zhenjin's head sank. He continued to investigate, and the results were more serious than he had expected. In the northwest and southwest of the small valley, there was 1 and 2 magical beast army. These 3 magical beast army were wandering around the edge of the controlled area of the small valley, and did not go deep. When the intelligence was brought back, the higher-ups all had serious expressions. "This means that there are at least 3 blue dog fox-wolf eyeing our camp. Could it be that there is only 1 magical beast army, and the blue dog fox-wolf is using a diversion tactic? No, the size of the army that attacked the camp before is basically the limit of a single blue dog fox-wolf's control. The traces left by the beast horde are very different. Moreover, it is very difficult to make these magical beasts disguise their own traces. After all, the blue dog fox-wolf is special. Since these magical beast army deliberately did not approach the valley, it means that they have already discovered us. They are not attacking now, so they must still be accumulating strength. It is very likely that the blue dog fox-wolf that is tailing us, it must have called more of its companions. The situation had become very bad. Everyone had to build the ship while defending against the magical beast army's attack. With the blue dog fox-wolf commanding the magical beast army, it was more than 10 times more powerful than a beast horde of the same size. What was worse was that the volcanic eruption was still ongoing, and the island seemed to be in the midst of some kind of drastic change. If the ship was completed too late, everyone might be buried with the island. The higher-ups discussed many ways to deal with it, and they were already experienced in dealing with the magical beast army. But no matter how ingenious the method was, someone had to carry it out. Once the manpower was transferred, the speed of building the ship would be reduced. This was something that no one wanted to see, but there was no other way. "No, I have a way." This was what Jinjin wanted to say, but he did not say it out loud. The fortifications began to be built and reinforced. Everyone rested at night, and Jinjin began to move. After transforming into a bat monkey, he quickly moved forward in the rainforest. The ultrasound detected a magical beast army. The bat monkey Jinjin quickly flew higher into the sky. In the sky, he saw the blue dog fox wolf firmly in the center of the army, heavily protected. The next moment, Jinjin activated his heart core, and something strange happened. A red light flashed in the sky, and then the bat monkey form dissipated, replaced by the crocodile-headed hammer-tailed mantis Jinjin. The crocodile-headed hammer-tailed mantis Jinjin did not have wings or the ability to fly, and its body was fatter than a normal crocodile-headed hammer-tailed mantis. Jinjin directly fell from the sky. Naturally, there were also bat monkeys in the magical beast army. At first, the bat monkey needles did not alert them, but when such a large crocodile-headed and hammer-tailed bat monkey needles fell from the sky, the bat monkeys let out terrified screams. The blue dog fox wolf on the ground had just reacted when the crocodile-headed hammer-tailed mantis Jinjin smashed into the ground with a loud bang. Tall and thick trees were crushed by him, and a few unlucky magical beasts were crushed to death on the spot. The crocodile-headed hammer-tailed mantis's alligator skin displayed strong defensive power. However, this layer of skin alone was not enough, and under the skin was a thick layer of fat. Of course, the fat did not belong to the crocodile-headed hammer-tailed mantis, but to the underground sandworms. Jinjin had naturally secretly transformed some of the underground sandworms after eliminating them. Although he could not transform into a complete form, the thick layer of fat was one of the options for him to transform. The fat trembled violently, counteracting the impact of the impact. The blue dog fox wolf jumped backward, and Jinjin's figure suddenly rushed forward, quickly approaching the blue dog fox wolf. Then he suddenly stretched out his head, and the huge crocodile mouth opened. Like lightning, he suddenly attacked and bit the blue dog fox wolf. The blue dog fox wolf tried to howl, but at this time, a large amount of acid gushed out from Jinjin's throat. The acid flowed backwards, and the blue dog fox wolf choked and coughed. It frantically scratched, and the hind legs that were left outside kept kicking. Unfortunately, at this time, Jinjin had already raised the upper half of his snake body, so the blue dog fox wolf was suspended in the air, and its hind legs could not exert force. Then, a red light emerged from Jinjin's mouth, forming 4 bloodlines, and tied up the blue dog fox wolf. The bloodlines sank, and the magical beast army launched a frenzied attack on Jinjin. The fastest to move was not the monkey-tail brown bear or the strong white rhinoceros that were closest to Jinjin, but the flying squirrels. A large number of flying squirrels. However, Jinjin had already expected this. Although he was in the form of a crocodile-head hammertail centipede, he released a silver-ranked bat monkey sound wave. When the flying squirrels were hit by the sound wave, they immediately fell to the ground and were no longer a threat. 2 strong white rhinoceroses charged over, and Jinjin did not have time to dodge. He was not familiar with the crocodile-head hammertail centipede form, so even if he dodged, he might not be able to dodge. Therefore, he did not dodge, and instead turned his crocodile skin into a scorpion shell. The strong white rhinoceroses crashed into the scorpion shell. They did not break the shell, but a huge impact was transmitted over. The thick fat under the scorpion shell once again absorbed the impact, and the violent fluctuations quickly dispersed the impact, perfectly receiving it. At the same time, a red light flashed in Zhen Jin's mouth, and the blue dog fox wolf was transformed and absorbed, turning into a pile of carbon powder. After killing the blue dog fox wolf, Zhen Jin was greatly energized. Having the blue dog fox wolf or not was a completely different situation. The effects of the strange fragrance were still in effect. Seeing their commander killed, the magical beasts went into a frenzy and began to attack Zhen Jin crazily. The other magical beasts were not so bad, but the brown monkey tail bear's red claws were able to pierce through the scorpion shell, poking holes in Zhen Jin's body. The fat under the scorpion was also roasted, and a delicious smell of food was emitted. Zhen Jin rolled on the ground, crushing a path. With a flash of red light, the huge crocodile head hammertail centipede form dissipated, and he once again turned into a silver bat monkey and flew into the sky. All the bat monkeys chased after him, while the rest of the magical beasts could only stand on the ground and roar. Zhen Jin flew high into the sky, and his speed was extremely fast. Only the two silver bat monkeys could barely keep up with him. Zhen Jin turned around and began to attack the silver bat monkeys. He turned into a lizard's head, but it was a spider's mouthpart. Two balls of milky white spider webs shot out and hit the two silver bat monkeys, binding their wings. The silver bat monkeys screamed and fell to the ground. The rest of the bat monkeys reached out to help, catching their leader in the air. But this was Zhen Jin's plan. He occupied the sky and continuously shot out spider webs, shooting down the bat monkeys one by one. Soon, the sky cleared and only Zhen Jin was left. Without the bat monkeys, Zhen Jin began to use acid, and continuously shot it out. The magical beasts could only roar and howl, but they could not do anything to Zhen Jin. The normal beasts were killed by the acid, and the bronze and dark iron beasts were heavily injured. The battle went on for a long time, and Zhen Jin's core mana reserves had decreased by more than half. The entire magical beast army was also exhausted from his torture. It's time. Zhen Jin saw the opportunity, and flew down, turning into the brown monkey tail bear form. He directly landed on a lethal white rhinoceros. The red bear claws directly pierced through the lethal white rhinoceros's head, and then the nails mutated, turning into spider blades, and piercing through the lethal white rhinoceros's brain, and sharp bee-tips emerged from its chin. Another lethal white rhinoceros charged over, and at the same time, a crocodile-headed hammertail centipede behind Zhen Jin attacked. Zhen Jin instantly turned into the silver flying squirrel, and like lightning, he successfully dodged. The lethal white rhinoceros and the crocodile-headed hammertail centipede crashed into each other. Zhen Jin directly crashed into the chest of a brown monkey tail bear, and before it could react, he exploded with a strong electric shock. Bang! The brown monkey tail bear fell, and smoke rose from its body. It was not a lethal white rhinoceros, and after being killed by such an attack, there was no possibility of revival. However, this level of electric attack consumed the most mana. After that, Zhen Jin did not use this method. Even without electric attacks, he still caused chaos in the magical beast army. Without the blue dog, fox, and wolf, these magical beasts had limited intelligence, and were easily manipulated by Zhen Jin without any concept of formation. In fact, many of their attacks landed on their companions. The most important change was that Zhen Jin had become stronger. All this time, he had been training hard and had accumulated a lot of results, and he had made great progress in many aspects. For example, before, Zhen Jin could not quickly change forms in the middle of a fierce battle. But now, he was doing it very smoothly. Before fighting with this magical beast army, Zhen Jin lacked an opportunity to thoroughly test himself. Now, this opportunity had come. Refreshing. Too refreshing. The more Zhen Jin fought, the more excited he became. In the beginning, when he used the various magical beast forms, there were still many areas where he was unfamiliar with, especially the transformation between the forms of the magical beast. But in the fierce battle, he became more and more proficient and became calm. Many of the movements were not smooth when he was training hard on a daily basis. But in the fierce battle, in the siege, and under the external pressure, these movements became smoother and smoother. The connection of various movements and tactics also became natural. The quantitative change triggered a qualitative change, and Zhen Jin could feel that he was becoming stronger. In the next second, he was even stronger than in the previous second. A little stronger. A little stronger. Zhen Jin roared in his heart. Slow, too slow. He caught up with a monkey-tail brown bear, and the blade on the back of his hand flashed, and the monkey-tail brown bear's head was cut off. Weak, too weak. He stepped on the bat monkeys that were bound by the spider web one by one, and they were directly trampled to death on the spot. Corpses were everywhere, and blood flowed all over the ground. Zhen Jin fought against an army alone, and began a bloody and brutal massacre. The magical beast army was mostly lost, and the rest began to flee. Zhen Jin began a merciless pursuit. No demonic beast could escape his pursuit. When the last deadly white rhinoceros fell by the small lake, Zhen Jin could not help but raise his head and laugh wildly. Ha ha ha! The conflict, depression, and pressure of the past few days had all been vented and released in this battle. Behind his butt, the scorpion tail skillfully pierced through the body of the deadly white rhinoceros. Then, the blood threads entangled and absorbed the deadly white rhinoceros. So I'm already so strong. What else can stop me? What else? Even if more magical beast army comes, what can they do to me? Zhen Jin raised his head and puffed out his chest, looking around arrogantly. The dark clouds dispersed, revealing the moonlight. At this moment, the vast rainforest was silent, as if awed by his ferocious might. Zhen Jin's gaze swept around and he suddenly paused. He saw his reflection in the lake. At this moment, he had a scorpion tail, a lizard's head, scorpion shell, the body of a bear, and spider blades on the back of his hands. A monster. Zhen Jin was stunned. The joy in his heart and the surging battle intent in his heart receded like the tide. It was as if he had become a statue. A moment later, his body trembled slightly, and he seemed to have come to his senses. He slowly retreated, until he could no longer see his reflection in the lake. Chapter 148. Shoot! Lan Zhao roared at the top of his lungs. Swoosh! The next moment, the crossbows were fired in unison, forming a black curtain of arrows. Under the curtain of arrows, the bat monkeys fell to the ground one after another. On the hillside, the remaining large magical beasts were still trying to charge. A monkey-tailed brown bear rushed to the front. Bang! Suddenly, a huge crossbow arrow flew out like a war spear, carrying a strong wind, and hit the monkey-tailed brown bear in the blink of an eye. It pierced through the wound in its chest and came out of its body. The monkey-tailed brown bear was shot to death, and its body was also sent flying a short distance by the crossbow arrow. Well done, Hei Wan! Seeing this scene, the morale of the people around him was greatly boosted. The huge crossbow arrow was shot from a crossbow, and the person who shot it was Hei Wan. In terms of archery, he was recognized as the person second only to Zhen Jin in the camp. Woof woof woof! At the rear of the magical beast army, several blue dog fox wolf barked together, and the magical beast army began to retreat. We did it! We won one victory, and we managed to hold this place. It's all thanks to Lord Zhen Jin and Lord Zhonggu. Everyone cheered, and almost everyone's eyes were focused on Zhen Jin and Zhonggu. It had been more than half a month since Zhen Jin's night attack and annihilated the entire magical beast army. In this half a month, the situation had rapidly deteriorated. Since Zhen Jin's first attack, the remaining blue dog fox wolf had chosen to gather in one place after realizing that the scattered magical beast army would be wiped out. This made it difficult for Zhen Jin to attack. After that, he tried many times to attack. He eliminated the blue dog fox wolf and slaughtered many magical beasts, but he was also tricked by the blue dog fox wolf, fell into a trap, was besieged, and was seriously injured. Fortunately, Zhen Jin's heart was no longer what it used to be. He could conjure the meat of the deadly white rhinoceros. This kind of rhinoceros meat is much more practical than other magical beast meat. After Zhen Jin turned the flesh of his wounds into rhinoceros meat, he gained the incomparable regenerative abilities of the life-enhancing white rhinoceros. Basically, there were no wounds left overnight. On the other hand, the deadly white rhinoceros needed to eat a huge amount of food to replenish its energy. Zhen Jin had the heart core, so he only consumed the mana within it. He consumed his mana to discharge electricity, and he also consumed his mana to heal himself. More and more, he realized the practicality of mana. This time, a new blue dog fox wolf has appeared. Zhonggu sighed as he returned triumphantly with Zhen Jin. The current situation was like this. Once a blue dog fox wolf was eliminated, a new one would soon appear, or even two. Every blue dog fox wolf had a magical beast army of varying sizes. Zhen Jin was silent. When he first discovered the magical beast army, he went all out, wanting to rely on his own efforts to directly resolve the crisis of the camp. At first, the situation was very good. He destroyed an entire magical beast army with his own strength. But the other two blue dog fox wolf that were wandering around the border quickly discovered the destruction of their companions and the army, and immediately gathered together. The two blue dog fox wolf stood side by side, which made it difficult for Zhen Jin to attack. He tried a surprise attack, but it failed. Only one blue dog fox wolf survived. After learning about Zhen Jin's information, the blue dog fox wolf once again made the right move. It ordered the flying squirrels to hide underground. These flying squirrels were originally good at digging holes in tree trunks and underground. After they hid deep underground, Zhen Jin's sound wave attacks were difficult to achieve. And when Zhen Jin began to attack, they received the blue dog fox wolf's orders, and these flying squirrels attacked in wave. No matter what Zhen Jin transformed into, he was not immune to electric shock. Although he also had a thick white fascia to protect himself, these crystal membranes only protected his internal organs, brain, and so on. His muscles were basically not within the scope of protection. The numbness brought about by every electric shock would cause his movements to stop. This was very dangerous. The blue dog fox wolf was even more cunning. It never sent out all the flying squirrels at once. Instead, it counterattacked Zhen Jin in waves. Zhen Jin was seriously injured and retreated. Just as he wanted to attack again the next night and destroy the few remaining magical beast army, he discovered that the enemy had added two magical beast army. He and the magical beast army were in a stalemate. As more and more information about him was leaked, the blue dog fox wolf had more and more accurate responses to him. The blue dog fox wolf was very concerned about its own safety. Zhen Jin's decapitation strategy had failed repeatedly. Once, the blue dog fox wolf even used Zhen Jin's strategy to deliberately show a flaw. They used one of the blue dog fox wolf as bait to lure Zhen Jin into a tight encirclement. The rest of the blue dog fox wolf commanded them to surround Zhen Jin and hunt him down. Fortunately, Zhen Jin could fly and luckily escape. But later, the new blue dog fox wolf brought along a group of blade spiders, which posed a huge threat to Zhen Jin. Zhen Jin could only fight at full strength in the middle of the night. After the magical beast army gained a foothold, they began to penetrate deep into the defensive zone and attacked the valley. Zhen Jin could not do anything about it. He was fighting alone and could not stop the huge magical beast army's advance. If I cooperate with the others and transform completely, I might be able to kill all these magical beasts and the blue dog fox wolf, Zhen Jin thought. However, he immediately dispelled this thought. He would not do that unless he had no other choice. Even when he transformed into his human form, he was very restrained. Usually, he would only transform when he was in the middle of a charge. Even if he transformed right in front of everyone, he would quickly rush into the group of beasts. Fortunately, ZD, Sang-Soo, and the others did not have the ability to fight. They were always at the back and did not have the chance to observe Zhen Jin's transformation at close range. And every time Zhen Jin prayed to the Qingming Emperor, the results were inconsistent. Everyone thought that this was a normal situation and did not have any more doubts. The upheaval might have happened a long time ago. Our hope lies in the new ship, Zhen Jin answered Zhonggu as he looked into the distance. The volcanic eruptions never stop. Although they were intermittent, the eruptions were becoming more frequent. The sky in the distance was dark. It was all volcanic clouds. Although the sky above the rainforest was clear, the volcanic clouds were spreading in all directions at a speed visible to the naked eye. It looked like it was going to cover the entire island. Zhonggu also looked at the erupting lava pillars and nodded. After bidding farewell to Zhen Jin, the half-beast man continued to guard the defensive line. These days, he was mainly in charge of commanding the defensive battle. He was not an ordinary soldier. He had been a general and had considerable talent. Sang-Soo was in charge of logistics and had been praised by Zhonggu many times. Zhen Jin was mainly in charge of guarding the construction site. The higher-ups had a clear division of labor. In the open space of the small valley, more than half of the new ship's hull had been successfully built. A large number of shipboards were pieced together and installed on the frame. The shipboards used the advanced horizontal joining method, not the backward overlapping method. Most of the people working around the hull were injured. The defensive line needed combat power, so the injured provided labor. These days they were very active in their work. Almost every day they sweated like rain. Their wounds reopened, and every night they were so tired that they fell asleep immediately. The situation was critical, and they could only escape with the new ship. This view had become everyone's consensus. In the open space, the most conspicuous person was the big guy. The big guy's labor was important, but he also had hidden dangers. Once he went crazy and the ship's hull was destroyed, everyone would lose hope of escaping. So usually Zhen Jin had to stay here. Once the big guy went crazy, he would act in time and knock him out. Zhen Jin would only appear there when the defensive line was tight. In the past half a month, there had been more than a dozen earthquakes and cries for shore. It was very frequent. The big guy had acted up nearly 10 times, but he was stopped in time by Zhen Jin. Every time the big guy acted up, everyone would move the ship along the sliding rails to the open space outside the valley, avoiding several earthquakes. No one found trouble with the big guy anymore. The huge external pressure from the magical beast army made the internal conflicts almost negligible. Baya dragged his tired body to the cave entrance. Under the light of the bonfire outside, he placed the parchment on his leg. He dipped the quill in ink. This small action made him grimace in pain. His arm was bandaged, and blood-red spots seeped through the bandage. He was injured in today's battle. The bat monkey bit his forearm. The hot and humid air made his clothes stick to his body. Only his stomach, which had eaten a full meal, transmitted happiness. Baya took a few breaths to calm his rapid breathing before he began to write the letter. Dear Miss Xier, please forgive me for writing to you again after so many days. Please also forgive me for not being able to deliver these letters to you. The magical beast army attacked again. I killed more than a dozen bat monkeys and injured many magical beasts. We thought that the magical beast army would not be a problem, but in fact, their reinforcements are endless. The situation seems to be getting worse. Today, another new magical beast army appeared. This made our previous week's intense battles and slaughtering efforts vanish into thin air. It is too easy to replenish the magical beast army. But fortunately, we have the valley. This terrain is far easier to defend than the camp. The most obvious point is that the crossbow can be placed at a high place. Lord Hei-Wan's prestige has increased recently because he is very good at controlling the crossbow. The power of the huge crossbow is very terrifying. It can often cause serious damage to silver magical beasts. Lord Zhonggu is even more admirable. Although he is a half-beastman, he has courage that is hard to come by. Although his left arm's gauntlet is damaged, he uses an iron shield to stand at the front line and personally block the attacks of the magical beast. That huge shield is almost as tall as me and is very heavy. But Lord Zhonggu can easily lift it. And the one we worship the most is always the Lord Jinjin. Every time the defensive line is in danger, he always appears where he is needed the most. Every time he appears, he can immediately kill the magical beast. Not only does he stabilize the defensive line, he also leads the charge. Every time we see his figure, our fearful and shaken hearts will quickly calm down and our low morale will quickly rise. The Lord Jinjin is a believer of the Qingming Emperor and is deeply loved by the Emperor. He has brought us light and victory. With Lord here, we will definitely win. Dear Miss Xier, today's battle made me break out in a cold sweat. The blue dog fox wolf has clearly probed our defensive line, and they have planned an extremely treacherous sneak attack. All of the strong white rhinoceroses were gathered together and charged on the slope. Our defensive line was directly destroyed. Seeing that the other magical beasts were about to pass through the gap in our defensive line, the Lord Jinjin appeared. I will never forget this scene. After the Lord Jinjin prayed loudly, another miracle appeared. He turned into a giant that was even bigger than the Zhonggu. He wore a golden armor and had unparalleled strength. The strong white rhinoceroses were unable to harm him. After he prayed loudly, the Qingming Emperor granted him a sharp sword that was hard to block. The sword flashed with lightning and was tightly held in his hand. The strong white rhinoceroses' heads were pierced and their brains were fried by the lightning. Wherever the Lord Jinjin went, the magical beasts were thrown off their feet and scattered. He then charged down the slope, scaring the blue dog fox wolf into running away. Although we won, this battle made people afraid. If it wasn't for the Lord Jinjin, we would have been defeated. Therefore, after a discussion between the Lord Jinjin, Zhonggu, Sangsu, Zd and the other lords, they decided to build more ballistae and crossbows. They also transferred more manpower to garrison the area. If we do this, the speed of the new ships will be slowed down. But there is no other way. The big guy is also a hidden danger. I told you in the previous letter that he has a disease. Someone suggested that the big guy be in charge of the defensive line because many people, including me, are worried. If the Lord Jinjin goes to the front line one day, the big guy will suddenly get sick and destroy the new ship. That would be terrible. But Scholar Tsang-Su has calculated and told us that the big guy's labor is equivalent to 50 people. He is even a skilled shipbuilder. He looks clumsy, but he is actually very skilled. This is related to the fact that he grew up on a ship and was taught by shipbuilders, which allowed him to participate in the repair of ship. The big guy plays an important role in the shipbuilding process. If he is sent to fight, the efficiency of the shipbuilding will be reduced to the bottom. Scholar Tsang-Su's words can't convince everyone. Of course, I believe in Scholar Tsang-Su. After the Lord Jinjin expressed his support for Tsang-Su, no one had any objections. Baya put away the letter he had written. Bean-sized beads of sweat rolled down his face. His face was pale. The fierce battle gave him no time to recover and rest. Dear Miss Shiyu, today is another fierce battle. The magical beast army's attacks are becoming more frequent and more fierce. I feel numb. I am not talking about the numbness in my heart. In fact, as long as the Lord Jinjin is here, my heart will always be filled with hope and fighting spirit. When I say numb, I am referring to my body. I am sick. Maybe it is the accumulation of old and new injuries that are dragging me down. Or maybe it is some kind of poison left in my wounds after being bitten by a beast. My vision is turning black. When I turn my head quickly, the world spins, and I even see the illusion of a mountain falling down on me. I have lost my sense of touch. I am holding the crossbow, but my fingers can't feel the bowstring or the trigger. My tongue is also numb. I have no sense of taste. ZD gave me some medicine. Every time I drink a tube, I feel better for half a day. But after half a day, my body feels like it is in an oven. It is as if my body can't control my soul. I feel like my soul is about to scatter. I don't know if I will be able to get through this. But I promise you, I have never been weak since I met with this disaster. I have always done my best to fight. I imitate the actions of the Lord Jinjin. I really want to have the same strength as him. Unfortunately, I am just an ordinary person. If, and I am saying if, I am unable to get through this and lose my life here. I beg you, for the sake of these letters, take care of my old parents on the mountain. Tell them of my death and ask them to forgive me, this unfilial son. Let me be an example to my younger brother and sister, so that they can learn from it. I have to admit, after I smelled the scent of death, I regretted it. But I will never regret knowing you, my beautiful, most beloved Miss Shiyu. Your smile has always been engraved in my heart. But please forgive me. My abilities are too limited. At this point, the tip of Baiya's brush paused. Then, with her drooping hand, the tip of the brush swiped across more than half of the parchment before falling to the ground. With a bang, Baiya fell to the ground. Chapter 149. How's the situation? Zhenjin walked into Baiya's residence. A pale-faced young man was lying on the straw bed. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Zhenjin used ultrasound to investigate. Using his ears that had mutated internal structure, he found that Baiya still had some breath. However, this breath was too weak. It was almost undetectable. The situation is not good. Sang-Su turned around and said. Zhenjin fell silent. Baiya, this young man had once made great contributions to the exploration team. He was young, pure, and full of yearning to be a knight. Now, he had fallen here with his eyes closed. The Grim Reaper's scythe was embedded in his neck. After going through so much, he still fell here. During this period of time, there were many new injured people in the valley camp. There was no lack of death. If it was before, the morale would drop again and again. However, now that Zhenjin was here, he had supreme prestige. Relying on his existence, the team still maintained good morale. Zhenjin was not surprised by Baiya's condition. Zhenjin felt more pity. If he was given a background and a bloodline, with his fighting spirit and perseverance, it might be different. Baiya was really too ordinary. He was just an ordinary person, He was young, full of vitality, drive, naivety, and stupidity. However, this kind of stupidity sometimes seems so precious. Baiya was happy to help others. This came from his nature. When the exploration team was poisoned, it was he who took care of the others. This earned him a good relationship with others. When they broke out of the acid-green lizard's encirclement, he was stupid enough to save Sang-Su. Instead, he got himself into trouble. If Zhenjin had not come back to save him, he would have died on the spot. When they were in the oasis, he saved Lan Zhao again. He was not afraid of being poisoned. His worship of needlework was almost blind. He was one of the most fanatical followers of needlework among all the people. I'm sorry I'm late. ZD's voice came from behind. ZD, quickly diagnose him. Zhenjin's heart was suddenly filled with hope. But ZD only responded with silence after checking. The light of hope in Zhenjin's eyes quickly faded. Sigh. Sang-Su sighed deeply. My lord, take a look at this. He had just found a stack of letters under Sang-Su's straw bed. These should be written by him. Sang-Su quickly browsed through it and frowned slightly. He was usually calm and rational, but at this moment, he revealed a rare look of anger. According to his judgment, Miss Xia had toyed with Bai Ye. She had used a fake love to deceive an inexperienced young man. She had made him take risks and send him to his death, just for fun. Zhen Jin shook his head. Sang Su, before the truth is revealed, nothing can be confirmed. The young knight did not want to see Sang Su's guess be correct. Zhen Jin took the stack of letters from Sang Su and quickly skimmed through them. The handwriting in the letters was terrible. It was messy and did not have any sense of beauty, but it was obviously Bai Ye's handwriting. It was obvious that he had not learned how to write for long. There were many places in the letters that were intentionally left blank. Bai Ye probably did not know how to write these words. The words in the letters had also changed color. They had turned purple, as if the ink had deteriorated. In the letters, Bai Ye expressed his love for Miss Xia and his admiration for Zhen Jin. And in the last letter, he wrote about regret. Seeing Bai Ye's regret, Zhen Jin could not help but feel his heart tremble. If he had not fallen into a life and death crisis, he would not have such a deep resonance. Zhen Jin's face was solemn. He stared at the unconscious Bai Ye and said solemnly, "I promise you, Bai Ye, if you are unfortunate enough to perish, I will personally deliver these letters to your beloved. If Miss Xia truly loves you, I will tell her everything. I will tell her that she did not misjudge you. You have the spirit of a knight. You fought bravely, did your best, and always followed the path of kindness and justice. You have never retreated. But if she is only playing with you, then I will uphold justice for you. She will be judged by a holy knight." After Zhen Jin finished speaking, he solemnly put away the stack of letters. Bai Ye's fate seemed to be sealed. Everyone left the cave. "Sir, please wait," Zidi suddenly spoke. At the same time, she glanced at Sang Su. Sang Su bowed to Zhen Jin and quickly left. Only Zidi and Zhen Jin were left in the passage. There was a moment of silence. "Sir, give these letters to me for safekeeping. After all, you are often at the forefront of the charge," Zidi said. "Please take good care of them." Zhen Jin nodded and handed the letters to Zidi. "Sir, Zidi said again. Zhen Jin smiled. "You don't have to comfort me. Indeed, I am in a very low mood. My companion has fallen. But I do not have the ability to save him. There are too many times when my ability is limited. Sir, after all, we are humans, not gods. Even gods have areas they are good at and not good at." Zidi held Zhen Jin's hands. "Sir, please do not blame yourself too much." "How can I not blame myself?" Zhen Jin smiled bitterly. "I neglected him too much. He is a meritorious subject. But later, when there were more people around him, his ability was overshadowed by others. I ignored him. Now think about it, did I use him as a tool? When this tool is useless, or when its usefulness is reduced, did I forget about him? Am I a qualified leader? I often give public speeches and say that I treat everyone equally. Did I really treat everyone equally? Did I really do it? If I paid more attention to Bai Ye and discovered his bad situation in advance, would the result be different now? Sir, Zidi called out softly. She took a step forward and threw herself into Zhen Jin's arms. She wrapped her arms around Zhen Jin's waist and hugged the young knight tightly. Lord Zhen Jin, you are definitely a qualified, no, an excellent leader. You are a knight, my knight. Please do not doubt yourself. The soft and tender body and the affirmative encouragement made Jin Zhen's depressed look a little relieved. The young man raised his hand and touched Zidi's shoulder. At this moment, the young man felt a warm current coming from Zidi's body. This warm current continued to flow into his heart, and the ice in his heart seemed to be melting. The invisible barrier seemed to be disappearing. Zhen Jin had the urge to tell his secret to Zidi again. But the next moment, his expression changed slightly. The ultrasound detected an emergency at the front line. The messenger had already run to the shipyard in the empty space in the small valley. We have to go. I still have to look after the big guy. Zhenjin gently pushed ZD away. Okay. ZD let go of her arms. Her purple crystal eyes stared deeply at Zhenjin. She watched him turn and leave. His figure disappeared around the corner. When the messenger arrived at the empty space in the valley, he successfully found Zhenjin. Zhenjin moved out. Not long after, he defeated the magical beast army again and stabilized the defense line. That night, he moved alone again to cause trouble for the magical beast army. However, the casualties he caused were becoming more and more limited. The defense around the blue dog fox wolf was very strong. Every blue dog fox wolf that died was a lesson in blood. It gave the blue dog fox wolf that survived a lot of experience. Although Zhenjin could also produce a strange fragrance, this phenomenon could not interfere with the magical beast army. Zhenjin did his best and killed many magical beasts. He dragged his exhausted body back to the camp to rest. The soldiers on night watch looked at him with admiration and respect. Zhenjin had very little time to rest. Among all the higher-ups, he was the one who worked the hardest. However, this kind of gaze, which was full of love and fanatical praise, could not give Zhenjin pure warmth and motivation. It was like a cold light without any temperature. It made him feel dazzled. As usual, the magical beast army attacked again the next day. The people defended the perilous area. Under the command of Zhonggu, they did their best to kill the magical beast army. If they did not do this, the situation would quickly collapse with the magical beast army's repeated reinforcements. However, although the people fought with all their strength and the magical beast army suffered heavy casualties, as time passed, their forces increased. Only then did the people realize that there were so many blue dog fox wolf on this island. However, thinking about it carefully, the island was too big. The jungle was vast and the forest was deep. It was normal for it to bear the life and reproduction of so many blue dog fox wolf. The situation was in a stalemate for the time being. The intensity of the earthquakes decreased, but the frequency was increasing. Sometimes there would be 3 or 4 earthquakes a day. The big guy was also getting sick. Roar. The big guy roared angrily. Run, he's getting sick again. The people fled in panic. Zhenjin's body was like lightning. He jumped up and hit the back of the big guy's neck. Bang. As soon as the big guy finished roaring, his eyes rolled back and he fell to the ground. Roar. Run, Zhenjin had already made his move. Bang. As soon as the big guy finished roaring, he fell to the ground. Roar. Hurry, bang. The big guy fell to the ground. Roar. Bang. The big guy opened his mouth and wanted to roar. Zhenjin made his move. Bang. As the number of times the big guy was knocked out increased, Zhenjin became more and more proficient. And practice makes perfect. He replaced it with throwing stones. The stones hit the back of the big guy's neck every time. The force was neither light nor heavy, just enough to knock him out. As a result, every time the big guy saw Zhenjin, he felt a faint pain in his neck. Zhenjin suppressed him every time. At first, the big guy was full of fear of Zhenjin because of this. Later, this fear turned into numbness, and then numbness turned into calmness. The big guy had an attitude of, go ahead and hit me, do whatever you want. I can't resist, I keep fainting. But in the end, his calmness actually gave birth to a sense of intimacy. As if he remembered the shipwright's words of, hitting you is loving you. But it's true, Zhenjin didn't hurt him. Every time Zhenjin stopped the big guy from acting up, he didn't harm the new ship or other people's lives. This created a more forgiving environment for the big guy. As the big guy fell to the ground again and again, the new ship became more and more complete. The ship's planks were connected, the rudder at the stern was completed, it was even reinforced with iron bars. The deck was also more than half completed. The new ship had 2 decks. After the second deck was completed, it would be the ship's bow and stern. Currently, people were rushing to make the necessary cabins. To build the ship, everyone was doing their best. And during this time, the front line was constantly being pushed back. At first, the defensive line was repaired, but as the situation developed, people could only abandon it. The defensive line retreated from the foot of the mountain to the slope. At first, in order to protect the empty space in the valley, people suffered heavy losses. Mu Ban came up with an outrageous plan. After getting the shipwright's approval, people moved the new ship up to the slope. This way, the defensive area was reduced, the soldiers were reduced, and the defensive line was stabilized. The reason for the defensive line's retreat was, on one hand, Zhen Jin's side kept losing people, while the Blue Dog Fox Wolf kept receiving reinforcements. The scales of victory were slowly tilting towards the magical beast army. On the other hand, the Blue Dog Fox Wolf gathered the underground sandworms and used them. Zhen Jin and Zhong Gu couldn't quickly kill these underground sandworms, they could only watch as they endured countless attacks and forcefully destroyed the defensive line. Zhen Jin carried out his responsibility as a leader. Even though the front line was constantly being pushed back, he kept boosting morale and taking the lead. And the new ship was constantly being perfected, giving people hope. Everyone persevered, gritting their teeth and persevering. Like iron in a large kiln, constantly being burned and forged, people gradually became a real group, they became close and tacit with each other. The estrangement, disgust, suspicion, etc. disappeared, replaced by the camaraderie and trust. From beginning to end, there were no deserters. There would be no deserters because they had nowhere to run. Finally, after paying the price of 100 casualties, the new ship was completed. It was a sunny day. At noon, there was an earthquake, so the magical beast army didn't launch an attack. After the earthquake, the magical beast army would be quiet for a while. On the slope, a simple ceremony was being carried out. "Sir, please do this hammer." The shipwright solemnly handed a hammer to Zhen Jin. "No, your contribution is the greatest. You do the last hammer." Zhen Jin shook his head. The shipwright still wanted to speculate, but Zhen Jin insisted. "Go, this is an order." The shipwright could only obey. Under everyone's gaze, he swung the hammer and hammered the nails that were specially left on the ship. Everyone cheered. The shipwright's eyes were red, filled with tears. He returned to Zhen Jin's side, his voice was a bit choked. "Sir, my lifelong wish was to create a ship. I didn't think, not on the dock, but on this island, I would be able to fulfill my wish. Of course, this ship has a lot of flaws. For example, the mast, we only have a low mast, after piecing it together, we can reach a suitable height. For example, the sails, our sails are too small, we can't borrow too much wind. Also, the bottom of the ship, both sides of the ship need to be reinforced with iron bars, the current structure's strength is worrying. Oh, and the anchor, we still lack a suitable anchor." All right. Zhen Jin smiled, patted the shipwright's shoulder and interrupted him. "These things we can make up for them during the voyage. Now is the time to celebrate, go, eat and drink to your heart's content. Today you are the brightest star. A lot of people are waiting for you, they all want to toast you." Zhen Jin pushed the shipwright to the crowd. Because of Zhen Jin's respect, the shipwright was almost moved to tears on the spot. The shipwright joined the crowd, the cheers instantly became louder. In the past few months, this was the only banquet. The new ship was completed, although it could only be considered as the foundation, barely reaching the standard for sea voyaging. But the significance was extraordinary. From now on, Zhen Jin and the others could attack or retreat. Of course, the new ship still needed a sliding track to enter the sea. The original sliding track had been destroyed by the magical beast army, but on the other side, there was another sliding track hidden in the shallow underground. This was Zhong Ji's suggestion. Everyone had to thank him for his foresight as a general. And other than the sliding track, when the new ship entered the sea, it also needed to attract the attention of the magical beast army, attracting their forces to the other side. There would definitely be a huge battle. Let's not think about this today, all I need is rest. Zhenjin also wanted to take a breather. These days, as the leader, he was under the most pressure. The shipwright was surrounded by the crowd. This was the most glorious moment of his life. Zhenjin was of course not left out. Shi Suo was half kneeling on the ground, one hand on his chest, the other holding a seashell wine cup. He was very emotional. "Sir, it is because of your leadership that we can persevere. You are the role model of the holy knights, the light of our light. Sir, please allow the lowly me to offer you this insignificant barbecue. Lord Zhenjin, all the praises are not enough to describe you. With you leading us, it is our life's greatest happiness." As if he was infected by the celebratory atmosphere, in the cave where the wounded were gathered for treatment, Bai Ye's eyelids slowly opened. But the compliments, the celebratory atmosphere of the banquet, could not affect Zhenjin. He sat on the main seat, looking at the laughing people. Although he was also happy, although he was smiling, he felt estranged, a deep estrangement. He was here, but also outside. He was like a person from two different worlds. Ever since the last time, he was unable to confess his secret to ZD. He was unable to say it. The banquet continued. Taking advantage of everyone's celebration, Zhenjin silently left the crowd. He came to a distant hillside and saw a straw hut. In this straw hut that could not shelter him from the wind and rain, the big guy was curled up, lying on the straw bed. "Here." Zhenjin gave the barbecue to the big guy. The big guy silently took it. Zhenjin walked a few steps and sat down on a huge rock. He looked up at the sky. Above his head was a pitch-black volcanic cloud, deep and dense. It seemed to be because of them there was no rain in the recent days. Since the ship was newly built, there was one less obstacle. Zhenjin looked into the distance. The hillside was higher than the forest. He could see the sea. The sky above the sea was not covered by the volcanic cloud. Where the sea and the sky met, the sun was setting. The sea was calm. Under the light of dusk it sparkled like fish scales. And on the hillside a new ship had just been built. When it was cleared of obstacles, it could follow the rails on the hillside and dive down. It rushed faster and faster, cutting through all the obstacles, until it rushed into the sea, splashing up monstrous waves. This beautiful scene was not only in Zhenjin's imagination, but also in the dreams of others. It was the greatest motivation that supported them until now. The sound of the big guy eating barbecue came to his ears. It was very rough, but it brought peace to Zhenjin. Compared to the banquet, he found that he liked this place more. There was a faint joy in his heart. Zhenjin himself was also very strange. At this moment, he did not look for ZD, but came to the big guy's side. Under the reflection of the setting sun, the lonely shadow of the young knight was elongated, extending to the straw hut. The big guy in the straw hut finished eating the barbecue, looked at Zhenjin with his back to him, and slowly climbed out. He squatted in the distance, imitating Zhenjin's movements, and also looked at the setting sun. Zhenjin noticed the big guy's movements, glanced at him, and smiled at him. Then the young knight looked at the setting sun again. The scenery in front of him was magnificent, but his eyebrows were always slightly wrinkled. There was a worry that was difficult to dispel. The big guy looked at the setting sun, and soon, he was bored. He glanced at Zhenjin, tried to move his butt closer to the young knight. Zhenjin did not respond. The big guy looked at the setting sun silently for a while, then moved again, closer to Zhenjin. Zhenjin still did not respond. The big guy moved again and again. At first, the interval between his movements was very long, but later, he moved more and more frequently. Zhenjin turned to look at him. The big guy's butt was off the ground, his hands on the ground, in the process of moving. Being looked at by Zhenjin, he suddenly froze like a stone statue. A gust of sea breeze blew, causing his hair to sway slightly. Zhenjin was amused, laughed, and patted the rock he was sitting on. The big guy suddenly grinned foolishly, revealing a mouth full of yellow teeth. He finally finished the second half of his movement, this time sitting directly next to Zhenjin, close to the rock. Not afraid of me anymore? The big guy shook his head and said sullenly, The big guy will accompany you. I knocked you out so many times, don't you hate me? The big guy shook his head again. You and the big guy are the same. Zhenjin's head shook, and he was stunned on the spot. Under the setting sun, the shadows of the two were drawn diagonally, close to each other. At first glance, there was no difference. P.S. The chapters I've been writing recently are in a very good state. I often can't stop, and the more I write, the more I write. I have to write out what's in my heart before I'm willing to stop, only then will I feel good. This is a pure, creative impulse, so much so that there is a delay in updating. But every chapter is basically a big chapter. I hope everyone can understand. I'm going to eat first. Chapter 150. Nonsense. While Zhenjin was still in a daze, the shipwright's voice came from behind him. The young knight and the burly man both turned around, seeing the shipwright holding a small barrel of wine in one hand and a large piece of barbecued meat in the other. Obviously, the shipwright was worried about the burly man, so he came out from the banquet and heard the burly man's words. Lord Zhenjin, please forgive him. This blockhead definitely didn't mean to offend you. The shipwright knelt on the ground with a worried expression. The burly man was confused. Zhenjin laughed. Stand up, do you think I don't know your son? I've knocked him out many times. In a way, what he said wasn't wrong. We've all been reduced to this, we're all on the same boat. The old shipwright was very grateful. Sir, your nobility isn't just because of your identity, your bloodline, your spirit, your character. It was you who saved us. The time we spent with you will definitely be remembered for the rest of our lives. Your bravery, tolerance, wisdom, and other virtues will definitely be praised in the future. Zhenjin nodded. His feelings towards these words were different from before. He said to the shipwright, Don't overestimate me, shipwright. And don't underestimate yourself, in fact, you're very important. Without you, how could we have made a new boat? Your son also contributed a lot. Without his efforts, we would still be a long way from completing it. Hearing this, the burly man smiled happily. His efforts were recognized. The shipwright's arrival made Zhenjin want to leave. The young knight jumped down from the rock. Sir, please let me send you off. The shipwright put the things in his hands in the straw hut, insisting on delivering them. Zhenjin could see that the shipwright was still worried. Don't worry, I won't argue with the burly man. After receiving Zhenjin's reassurance, the shipwright was relieved. Nobles and knights valued their reputation very much. Most of them would think of the burly man's words as an insult to themselves. Sir, you really are different from the other big shots. The shipwright was filled with emotion, revealing his true feelings. Please forgive me for being presumptuous, but I've never seen the big guy get close to anyone other than me. You probably don't know how shocked I was when I saw the big guy sitting next to you. Before meeting you, no one had ever looked at him as an equal. No one had ever truly looked at people like us. Zhenjin said with a wry smile, I am indeed different. He patted the shipwright's shoulder. Although you've never said it, I can imagine the big guy's life experience. He was an abandoned baby on the ship and was adopted by you. He was born with the bloodline of a giant and suffered from strange gazes. His strength is getting stronger and stronger, and his body is getting bigger and bigger. Almost everyone discriminates against him, hates him, is wary of him, insults him, and curses him. His hearing is very sharp. He can hear what people think is a whisper. He can hear the curses, mockery, and hatred of the people around him. Only you are good to him and give him the love of a father. That's why he is always close to you. From what I saw with my own eyes, I fought for you. Even if I didn't have any martial skills, I would be willing to give up my life to protect you. And you must have given up a lot for him. Look at the way he curled up in the straw hut. Look at how he took the initiative to avoid others and cower. I know that in order to let him survive, you must have taught him how to survive as a monster in the human world. You must be very worried. Worried that one day, he would be treated as a monster by many people and destroyed in the name of justice. You must also be very pained to see him being bullied by others and not being able to fight back. Because you taught him not to fight back, otherwise the consequences would be even worse. That's why he doesn't know martial skills. He is used to enduring. Is he ugly? No, he just looks different from most people. His heart is much kinder than most people. Is he strong? No, who said that having great strength and a strong physique is strong? What kind of strong person would only cry out in pain to protect their weapon? He is actually very weak. Weak. Protecting and supporting such people, isn't that the spirit of a knight? My lord. The shipwright's eyes were red, tears rolled down his cheeks as he choked on his words. The praise and affirmation he heard at the banquet before, even if it was 100 times, 10,000 times more, it still couldn't compare to Zhen Jin's words. Because Zhen Jin really understands him. The word understand might seem simple, but it is actually very difficult and heavy. You are a good father. Zhen Jin left these words and left, leaving the old shipwright behind, staring at Zhen Jin's back. The setting sun sank into the sea, no longer leaving any afterglow. In the old shipwright's blurred vision due to his tears, Zhen Jin's figure seemed a little strange, but it seemed to be shining. The new ship was basically completed, it has the ability to sail. This matter caused the survivors' morale to soar. In the next few days, Zhen Jin and the others began to prepare for the new ship to sail. If there was no blue dog fox wolf, sailing the new ship would be a simple matter. But now that the magical beast army had surrounded the small valley, the difficulty of this matter skyrocketed by more than 100 times. Some people were glad that they listened to Zhong Ji's suggestion and built a backup track. But whether this track could be used or not was still a problem. After all, there were countless earthquakes on the island, and the backup track was buried in the shallow layer of the ground to prevent it from being damaged by the wind and rain. Even if the track wasn't damaged, in order to use the track, they had to remove the wooden planks and other covering materials. And according to Mu Ban's estimation, it was very likely that the track would be intermittently damaged on a small scale. This meant that it had to be built in advance to be able to use the track. And Blue Dog Fox Wolf's intelligence made the matter of repairing the track even more complicated. Once the Blue Dog Fox Wolf became aware of their intentions, then the new ship's plan to sail would be more hindered, or even ultimately fail. After Zhen Jin and the others discussed, they decided to attract the attention of the Blue Dog Fox Wolf, dig a tunnel, secretly send a repair team to check the track, and seize every opportunity to repair it. In order to increase the possibility of escape as much as possible, Zhen Jin no longer trained at night. On the one hand, he continued to harass the magical beast army, weakening their combat power as much as possible. On the other hand, he personally investigated the state of the underground surface track. The results of the investigation were not optimistic. The track was damaged in many places, and some of them were almost broken into pieces. The amount of repair work was large, but the difficulty was not high. The structure of the track was very simple. While Zhen Jin was busy, he received a piece of good news. He came to the cave where the injured and sick were gathered and saw Baiya. Baiya, who had been in a coma for many days, had now woken up. Lord Zhen Jin. His breath was still very weak, his face was pale, his cheekbones were protruding, and he had lost a lot of weight these days. You made it through again. Take care of your injuries. Let me tell you a piece of good news, the new ship has been built, and it has reached the standard to go to sea, Zhen Jin said with a smile. He had lost all his memories, but he had a deep and good impression of Baiya. After returning from the volcanic cave, he only had Sang Su, ZD, and Baiya by his side. Baya nodded, and a look of shame appeared on his face. I have been in a coma for so many days, I am a burden to everyone. Zhen Jin shook his head. This is not a burden, we are companions on the same ship, helping each other and leaving this place together is our common goal. This is your letter. ZD, who was on the side, returned the previous letter to Baya. It seems that we don't need to send it. Oh right. There is also a new bottle of ink. The bottle of ink you used before has gone bad. This new bottle of ink was made by me. It will not fade. ZD also gave Baya a small gift. Baya was flattered, and he was so moved that his voice choked. It is so good to meet all of you. When I was in a coma, I seemed to have become a lonely soul, floating in the boundless darkness. I didn't know where to go, and where to come from. In a trance, I heard Miss Shiyu calling me. It must be love, it was love that guided me. Baya began to talk about his experience of being in a coma. Ever since he came out of the oasis, he had a tendency to talk a lot. This near-death experience seemed to have increased the extent of his chatter. Zhen Jin smiled. He knew how Baya felt and understood very well, because he had been on the verge of death many times. It was really good to be able to talk so much. This was the feeling of being alive. Baya's awakening was like a ray of sunlight that bathed Zhen Jin's heart. For the next few days, Zhen Jin's heart was bright. Every night, after praying to the Xingming Emperor, Zhen Jin would tell himself, "It will be better, everything will be better. I can take Baya ZD, Sangsu, and the others and leave this island alive. When we reach White Sand City, I will forget about the heart core, forget about the various changes. Or I will ask a priest or doctor to remove the hidden dangers in my body." The maintenance of the slide was finally completed. The higher-ups were happy, and they were glad that the maintenance was much easier than they had expected. They didn't know that the main reason was that every time the maintenance team was on the move, Zhen Jin would personally go and harass the magical beast army alone. In order to attract the attention of the blue dog fox wolf, Zhen Jin risked his life several times, charging into the enemy's ranks, and finally retreating with serious injuries. These days, the shipwright, Mu Ban, and the others weren't idle. Before, the new ship's foundation was completed, and there was a lot of follow-up work. Now, the new ship had wooden slats on both sides of the ship's hull to strengthen the structure. The ship's board, deck, and other gaps were filled with broken hemp rope, and then they were glued together with ZD's medicine. The shipwright also taught some people a small craft, how to process wood into qualified pulleys. Sail rigging required a lot of pulleys. The high-grade pulley was made of metal. It was really a wheel. But the new ship only used wooden modules, shaved into the shape of wheels, and then smeared with oil to make the surface lubricated. The most conspicuous was the bow. At the front of the bow, there was a ram, made up of several tree trunks, like a knight's spear. The curved surface of the bow was reinforced with many wooden planks, like a shield. With a spear and a shield, plus the speed of rushing down the mountain, even if the crocodile-headed hammer-tailed centipede was in front, it could still be knocked away. The day of the new ship was really close. However, on the night of this very day, Yi Zichen suddenly stopped. Rumble, the sound of the volcano erupting seemed to be transmitted over. Everyone was awakened. Standing on the hillside, they saw the volcano erupting, forming an unprecedented magma pillar, shooting straight into the sky. Then, the earth shook violently and rocks rolled down, smashing into the erected boards around the new ship. It was an unprecedented earthquake. Under the horrified gazes of the people, the small valley that they had always treated as their home finally couldn't hold on. A huge crack appeared on the surface of the mountain. The crack spread across the valley, and then the valley suddenly collapsed. "Quick, run!" The people panicked and began to cover their heads and run. Zhonggu wanted to stabilize the situation, but he didn't succeed. "Protect the ship!" It seemed to be the shipwright's shout, but no one listened. When the earthquake happened, Zhenjin was fighting with the magical beast army. When he rushed back to the camp, the small valley was no longer the same as before. There were broken rocks, broken wood, and corpses everywhere. No! Zhenjin's face was pale, and he hurriedly ran deeper into the ruins. There were still aftershocks, and perhaps there would be an even bigger earthquake in the next moment, but the people in the ruins had already begun to save themselves. The ship. We have to dig the ship out. Someone come help me move the rocks. It's over, we're finished, the ship is definitely destroyed, we have no hope. There was a lot of noise, some people's faces were ashen, desperately digging and moving rocks, while others were wailing and breaking down emotionally. The new ship that had always carried their hopes had a very small chance of surviving. I told you, the small valley is very dangerous. If there was a big collapse, it would be terrible. You just didn't listen to me. Someone shouted, complaining and blaming others. More people were silent. There were also people who angrily scolded, bullshit. Without the valley, can you stop the magical beast army? Zhenjin didn't stop the people from venting, they needed to vent, only then could they calm down. In fact, Zhenjin also needed to vent. Looking at the ruins, he was angry, shocked, panicked, and disappointed, but as the leader, he could only suppress these negative emotions in the bottom of his heart. Just as he took over the command, the rocks suddenly shook, and a large hand appeared. Help, help me. Then, the large man's voice came from below. Son, son. Not being able to find the large man, the shipwright who was already panicking quickly rushed over, frantically moving the rocks. Hold on, hold on. The old shipwright kept calling out. Zhenjin, Zhonggu and the others all moved, combining everyone's strength, quickly moving the rocks away. The large man was revealed. His legs were crushed by a huge rock. His injuries were very serious, it was definitely a comminuted fracture. But the large man still used both his hands and his chest to block the huge rock. Seeing the shipwright again, the large man was very happy and asked for praise. Father, look, I protected the ship. The old shipwright's eyes were red, looking at the large man in shock. Seeing that the large man was still alive, he was naturally overjoyed. But when he saw the large man's injuries, he immediately fell into a strong sense of regret and self-blame. Father was wrong, the old shipwright cried. When the mountain was collapsing, in a moment of desperation, he shouted to protect the ship. Other than the large man, no one else listened to the shipwright, including himself. Father, don't cry, the ship is still here, the ship is still here. The large man quickly comforted the shipwright. He knew how important this ship was to the shipwright. Unbelievable, the ship's hull is only slightly damaged. Mu Ban checked and loudly reported. It's all thanks to the large man, if the rock really hit the ship would definitely be destroyed. Large man, good job. It's all thanks to you. After understanding the situation, everyone thanked him. The large man was a bit stunned. This was the first time he faced such a situation. Only the old shipwright rushed to the large man's side, looking at the rock and the large man's severely deformed legs. Does it hurt? The large man nodded, then shook his head. Father, don't cry, I don't feel pain, hurry up and move the boulder away. Main Gu roared. We can't move it, it will cause further damage to the large man's legs. We need to first break this rock, or corrode it, Zhenjin shook his head. Just as he was about to give the order, he suddenly heard the howling of wolves. A woo! The howling of wolves came one after another. Everyone heard it clearly, and their faces all changed. The magical beast army is attacking. Chapter 151. Didn't the magical beast army stop attacking after the earthquake? What do we do now? Our defense line has collapsed. The crowd was in a state of chaos. Zhenjin frowned deeply. The situation had suddenly reached the most critical moment. Let's retreat. We can't win. Someone suggested. It was a former member of the Sandow mercenary group. All along, the survivors had been fighting against the magical beast army by occupying the high ground, relying on the city's defense, and then using long-range firepower such as bows and crossbows to exhaust and suppress them. This was the most correct tactic, because this island banned magic and the use of low-level combat energy. But now, after the earthquake, the valley had collapsed. There was a shortage of crossbows, and the city's defense was gone. Most of them were ordinary people. In actual combat, they could barely deal with ordinary beasts, not to mention a large number of magical beasts. We can't retreat. The ship is still here. We can build it again. How much time do we have to build it? I think this damn island is about to be finished. People began to quarrel. Their opinions were not unified. Indeed, recently, the weather on the island was obviously abnormal. Volcanic clouds covered the sky, and earthquakes occurred constantly. Perhaps this island would eventually be split into countless pieces by the earthquake, or completely covered by the volcanic magma. The shipwright cried out mournfully, "We can't retreat. My son can't run away." The big guy was still pressed under the boulder. People became more and more panicked. "Calm down," Zhenjin shouted. Instantly, everyone's eyes were focused on Zhenjin. Fate. The young leader sighed and couldn't help but smile bitterly. The situation was clearly good before, but in the blink of an eye, he was once again in a desperate situation and faced with difficult choices. However, ever since he woke up and struggled to survive on this island, how many difficult choices had he faced? This time, compared to all the choices before, Zhenjin was more decisive. His gaze was firm as he looked around. Retreat? Where can we retreat to? Some of us can retreat because our bodies are far stronger than ordinary people. But what about the majority of you? Can you escape the pursuit of the bat monkey, the crocodile hammertail centipede, and the crafty blue dog fox wolf? Everyone fell silent. Everyone, this is the most crucial moment. We don't have a camp to defend the city, and we don't have enough weapons. The earthquake just now caused our men to suffer heavy losses, but this time, we can only fight to the death. We have to fight while clearing the obstacles so that the new ship can enter the slippery track. We have to get the new ship into the sea and break through all obstacles. When we win, when we celebrate on the surface of the sea, when we look back and see these damned magical beasts drowned in lava and sink with this damned island, we will be grateful for our efforts. We will be glad that we didn't give up when we were at our most desperate. Believe me, we will be the final victors. Zhenjin shouted and pulled out his thin sword, Silver Lightning. He placed the thin sword in front of him and began to pray loudly. Shringming Emperor, my lord, please show some mercy, please cast your gaze here. Your knights will fight to the death and continue to practice your way. We will let the flag of the empire fly, we will save the world, we will help the good and the weak, even if we have to pay with our lives. As soon as he finished speaking, his body expanded rapidly as if it was inflated. He directly tore his clothes, and dark golden armor grew out, covering Zhenjin's limbs and torso, covering his head, and even the soles of his feet. Zhenjin raised his hand and threw the thin sword Silver Lightning back to Heiwan. In a place where no one could see, a small spider tentacle appeared in the palm of his right hand, and it was also covered by the scorpion shell. Then Zhenjin clenched his hand into a fist, and a spider blade grew out from the end of the spider tentacle and protruded from the center of his fist. The sharp surface of the blade was still surrounded by electric light. This was the latest result of Zhenjin's hard training. He combined the electric shock of the flying squirrel and the spider blade, and only generated electricity locally in the blade. It couldn't greatly reduce the consumption of magic energy, and it also allowed the strength of his attacks to undergo a qualitative change. Everyone exclaimed. This was the first time Zhenjin completed a mutation in the middle of a crowd. A divine night. This is a miracle. The great God is watching us. We will definitely win. The morale stabilized, and the fire of hope reignited in everyone's eyes. Zhenjin, however, was heavy. This was a last resort. Normally, he wouldn't have mutated in front of everyone. But the situation was very critical, and he couldn't care less. He had to appease the people as soon as possible, so he could only take the risk. In the next battle, even if we can win, it will be a Pyrrhic victory, and we will definitely suffer heavy casualties. Zhen Jin had a clear judgment. If he was alone, it would be fine. The magical beast army couldn't do anything to him. But he had to protect many people, including ZD, Sang-Su, and so on. He had to try his best to let as many people survive as possible. Because he was a holy knight, and because such a large ship needed people to control. It would be difficult for a dozen people to drive it. Even if they could start in the future on the sea, in the face of a storm, or even slightly larger waves, it would be difficult for them to fight back. The magical beast army did not waste their breath, nor did they adjust their formation. Under the command of the blue dogs, foxes, and wolves, the magical beast army charged forward. Everyone occupied the collapsed ruins of the valley, desperately resisting. Zhenjin and Zhonggu stood proudly at the front. Zhonggu also put on his helmet, fully armed. Under the helmet, both of them looked very serious. The magical beast army rushed over too quickly, and they didn't even have time to count the number of people on their side. Most of the people fled in a hurry to avoid the earthquake, and now they were even unarmed. Fire, quickly set up a fire for me, ZD shouted. The girl opened the leather bag, and there were neatly arranged backup potions inside. Quick, quick! Mu Ban ordered a group of wounded people to clear the path. Son, hold on, Dad will take you away in a while. After the shipwright comforted the big man, he immediately hurried to join Mu Ban and the others. Rumble. The group of beasts rushed over like a huge wave. Many people swallowed their saliva. In the past, they had been shooting from a high vantage point. Now that they were facing the group of beasts on almost flat ground, they immediately felt the terrifying power of the magical beast army. But the beasts' charge suddenly slowed down. The valley collapsed, and there were many rocks, hindering their charge. Zhonggu and Zhenjin's eyes flashed at the same time, and they both saw an opportunity. You take charge of the front line, I'll charge for a while first, Zhenjin shouted. Zhonggu nodded. He knew that Zhenjin was stronger and more suitable for this task. Zhenjin rushed out alone, and directly rushed into the group of magical beasts, killing in all directions. He roared repeatedly, and the flying squirrels couldn't get close to him at all. The claws, fangs, and blades of the bat monkeys and blade spiders couldn't do anything to the scorpion shells. The web of the blade spiders was directly cut by Zhenjin's blade. Only the red monkey-tail brown bear's claws made Zhenjin wary, but it wasn't much of a problem. The young knight used ultrasonic waves, and with his talent in chaotic battles, he could always find the most suitable attack route for himself in the chaos. The magical beast army was turned upside down by him. The flashing blades were sharp and unparalleled, almost killing one magical beast with a single slash. Even the silver magical beasts were no exception. Zhenjin's figure fighting bravely boosted the morale of the people behind him, and their blood boiled. Woof woof woof. The blue dog fox wolf barked. The magical beast army quickly changed, leaving a group to trap Zhenjin, and the other two groups to the left and right of the group rushed towards the crowd. These cunning beasts! Zhonggu cursed and led the group to fight on the spot. The bows and arrows were sparse, and they couldn't hit the fierce beasts at all. When the distance was close, the group hurled stones. The normal beasts were blocked, but the monkey-tail brown bear and the other beasts were like scratches even if they were hit. The magical beasts were close, and the survivors were no match for them at all. Screams were heard, and in an instant, the people suffered heavy casualties. Zhonggu, Sandow, Heiwan, Lan Zhao and the others became the mainstay, but they only lasted for a short while before they were forced to retreat by the increasing pressure. Sandworms attacked from the ground, bat monkeys swooped down from the sky, and white rhinoceroses, monkey-tail brown bears, and crocodile-headed hammertail centipedes came from all directions. The group couldn't resist at all. Retreat, retreat! Zhonggu roared in desperation. His voice was hoarse and distorted. He had the talent of a general, and he knew that if he rashly retreated, it would easily lead to a collapse. But there was no other way. If they continued to stay, they would definitely die, so they could only take the risk. Fortunately, at the crucial moment, Zhen Jin saw that the situation was not good, and came back to kill. He and Zhonggu fought side by side, personally bringing up the rear, and killed fiercely, causing fear in the magical beasts, which allowed the group to successfully retreat to the vicinity of the new ship. Seeing the front troops retreat to their side so quickly, Mu Ban, the shipwright, and the others showed a look of panic. They tried their best, but they couldn't clear half of the obstacles. There was no time at all. Blue Dog Fox Wolf was cunning and vicious. With only one tactic, the survivors were forced into a corner. The main thing was that the situation was too passive. In this round of confrontation, the front troops had already lost more than half of their forces. Woof woof woof. The deadly barks once again resounded through the battlefield. Blue Dog Fox Wolf didn't want to give Zhen Jin and the others any time to breathe. The magical beast army rushed over again. Everyone was in despair, even if Zhen Jin was by their side. We can only completely mutate. Zhen Jin threw all his worries to the back of his mind, and made up his mind. Zhonggu, you defend here. I will rush over. As long as I kill Blue Dog Fox Wolf, the threat of the magical beast army will be greatly reduced. Zhen Jin shouted. This was the only chance. Purely defending, even if it was completely mutated, was not enough. Zhen Jin was only one person after all. Right now, he could only use offense as defense. If you want to kill my people, then I will directly kill you. The disadvantage was too great. Zhen Jin could only use this desperate tactic. Master! Zidi's voice came from behind. Be careful. The bonfire was lit. Zidi sprinkled the powder. The smoke forced the flying squirrels, poisonous bees, and bat monkeys to retreat, greatly reducing the pressure on the defense. But it was difficult to maintain. The small leather bag only had so much capacity. The backup potions were only a small part of it. You take care of yourself too. Zhen Jin only had time to say this to his fiancée, and then turned around to fearlessly charge. Chapter 152. Charge, charge, charge. Zhen Jin charged directly to the rear of the magical beast army. His desperate and resolute manner frightened the surrounding magical beasts. Woof woof woof. Under the command of the Blue Dog Fox Wolf, a large number of magical beasts began to surround and block Zhen Jin. Jin Zhen rolled on the ground and dodged the bite of a crocodile-headed hammer-tailed lion. He ran quickly and brushed past a brown monkey. With a swing of his sword, he split the bat monkey that pounced at him in half. He suddenly jumped and stepped on the back of the strong white rhinoceros. Then he landed, rolled, and continued to charge. The flying squirrels attacked. He roared loudly, and the flying squirrels rolled to the ground, howling in pain. The underground sandworms burrowed out of the ground to attack, but Zhen Jin's ultrasonic wave had already detected them. He dodged in advance, and the underground sandworms returned without success. Looking down from above, the magical beast army was like a huge wave, and Zhen Jin was going against the flow alone. The Blue Dog Fox Wolf did not panic at all. Zhonggu and the others did not know Zhen Jin's identity, but they had already guessed it. After all, Zhen Jin harassed the magical beast army almost every night. The scorpion shell on his body and his fighting style were very obvious. When Zhen Jin was halfway, the blue dog fox wolf that had gathered together suddenly scattered, leaving only one standing in place. Woof woof woof! A new order was given. More than half of the magical beast army split up and charged at the ship and Zhonggu and the others. For some reason, these blue dog fox wolf hated the survivors to the extreme. They would not stop until they killed them all. The blue dog fox wolf that was left alone commanded many magical beasts to exhaust Zhen Jin's stamina. He had a fearless attitude of, "I'm right here. Come, I'll let you kill me." Zhen Jin was not afraid of sacrifice, but at this moment the blue dog fox wolf also showed that they were not afraid of sacrifice. The blue dog fox wolf's strategy was very clear. "I really can't do anything to you. I can't do anything to Zhen Jin. However, even if our side loses a blue dog fox wolf or more, your side will inevitably lose even more people. In fact, other than you, Zhen Jin, everyone else will die. Kill everyone except you, destroy the new ship, and then we'll continue to exhaust you. It doesn't matter if you fight, run, or kill all the magical beast army here, you won't be able to leave this island. Your fate is sealed." Zhen Jin's head sank. Seeing the blue dog fox wolf's tactics, what he was most afraid of had happened. Continuous screams came from behind. Zhen Jin couldn't help but look back. The situation of Zhonggu and the others at the moment made him angry. Zhonggu fought a bloody battle. Sandao, Shi Suo, and the others were already injured. If Zhen Jin went back now, he could indeed save them and stabilize the situation. However, this was only temporary. With the current situation, the survivors simply couldn't defend. If Zhen Jin didn't go back, even if he completely mutated, he would only be able to kill one or a few blue dog fox wolf, but lose his companions and the new ship. His fate was sealed. Under the wisdom of the blue dog fox wolf, even if Zhen Jin was strong, he was doomed to fail. Looking back, Zhen Jin's distraction created a flaw. The sandworms under the ground launched a surprise attack together. Zhen Jin avoided the first two, but was finally swallowed by the third and quickly brought deep underground. "Dad, quickly hide on the ship!" the big guy roared. "Quickly get on the ship!" Zhonggu also roared. Originally, everyone wanted to protect the new ship, but now that the magical beast's attack was abnormally fierce, Zhonggu and the others couldn't care about the future. Everyone entered the ship, relying on the ship's boards and other things, temporarily stabilizing their position. "No!" The shipwright let out a mournful cry. The big guy was still outside the ship. Time was too tight. Everyone didn't have time to move the huge rock that was pressing down on the big guy's legs. The big guy was besieged by the magical beast. Immediately, his flesh was lacerated and blood flowed out. He didn't have any martial skills. At the same time, facing the huge rock with his back to the enemy, he had no way to resist. "Throw him a knife, let him chop off his legs, then climb up," Zhonggu roared as he fought. The cruel suggestion made the shipwright tremble. Although the big guy had the giant's blood, his vitality was strong, and his recovery was strong, but directly chopping off two of his legs was a heavy injury that couldn't be healed. However, if he didn't chop it off, he would die. The shipwright's face was pale. His hands were trembling, but he still threw away the knife. "Take it, aim at your knees, and chop off your legs," the shipwright shouted to the big guy. Bang bang bang. ZD threw out a few glass bottles of medicine, quickly forming a light green mist around the ship. The mist blocked many magical beasts, but the stronger ones were still able to fight in the green mist. Strong white rhinoceros, monkey-tailed brown bear, crocodile-head hammertail centipede, they were all able to move freely. The big guy howled in pain. He had chopped off his own legs. Blood flowed out, but he was able to escape and regain his freedom. He used his iron knife to chop wildly, temporarily forcing the magical beasts around him to retreat. Then he dragged his body, using both hands. He quickly climbed up to the new ship. "Quickly come up." The shipwright reached out to the big guy. He leaned forward, even though he knew he wasn't strong enough. He still wanted to pull the big guy and let him climb up the ship. But the big guy didn't climb up the ship. He looked up, smirking at the shipwright. He threw away his iron knife, using his chest to push the ship. He used both hands to desperately push the ship. "Father, quickly go!" A few bat monkeys pounced, landing on his shoulders and back, crazily gnawing at his flesh. But the pain they brought was just a drizzle. The greatest pain came from the big guy's broken leg. The piercing pain almost made the big guy faint, but he still used his sawed-off legs, using the cut wounds to push against the ground, supporting his body. No matter what kind of injury, no matter how painful it was, it didn't matter. As long as Father lives, as long as Father lives, it's fine. Ah! The big guy roared crazily. Under his desperate push, the new ship began to move. At first it was just a tiny bit, then an inch, 2 inches, gradually it began to move, and then it became faster and faster. "Why is the ship moving?" Someone was shocked. "It's the big guy." Many people's eyes were red. "Son, my son." The old shipwright was in pain. "Quickly get up here, stop, quickly get up here. Be good, listen to your father." The big guy didn't say anything. He lowered his head, not daring to look at the shipwright. He used his forehead to push against the ship's deck, contributing to the pushing force. He apologized to the old shipwright in his mind. "I'm sorry, Father, I'm sorry, this is the first time. I didn't listen to you." Seeing the big guy not resisting, a large number of wild beasts and demon beasts piled on top of him, brutally biting and tearing at him. The big guy's pain actually decreased. In fact, this was a sign of danger. When a person's pain was too intense, to the point of endangering their life, the brain would stop using pain to remind them. Because too much pain would also create interference, preventing them from saving themselves. The big guy didn't want to save himself. He pushed the new ship step by step, giving it speed on land. He only wanted to protect his father, to send his father into the sea. Everyone on the ship was shocked. The new ship knocked away all kinds of rocks. As long as it put in a bit more effort, it would be able to completely knock away all the obstacles and enter the slipway. Before this, the slipway had already been repaired by the maintenance team and reinforced to prevent earthquake. With this kind of speed, as long as they enter the slipway, the new ship would have a high chance of successfully entering the sea. As long as they can enter the sea, the magical beast army won't be able to threaten their lives anymore. "Get the hell out of here!" The old shipwright's face was covered in tears. He was in extreme pain. The big guy's strength was used up. His injuries were too heavy, he was losing too much blood. A huge rock tripped him, and he fell to the ground. His head was bleeding profusely from the impact. The wild beasts and demon beasts on top of him almost instantly drowned him. "Push again!" The new ship's speed greatly decreased. Hay-Wan anxiously shouted, "Didn't you want your father to live?" The big guy was lying on the ground. He was already in a daze, but as he heard that, he suddenly woke up. He raised his bloody hands and put them on the deck of the ship again. "Push!" The big guy couldn't stand up anymore, but he still wanted to push the ship. Most people's hearts were beating fast. They were fighting against the wild beasts while staring at the front of the ship. There was only one last obstacle left. "No, Lord Jinjin isn't back yet," ZD shouted. "He will be back, let's go first, we can't drag him down." Hay-Wan shouted. "No!" At this time, the old shipwright shouted and suddenly jumped down from the ship. He was holding a long piece of wood, madly waving it. He actually managed to drive away quite a few demon beasts on the big guy. "You don't want to live anymore?" The person next to him stared. He wanted to grab the old shipwright, but it was too late. "Father!" Seeing the old shipwright jump down and come to his side, the big guy squeezed out a bit of strength, waving his arms to protect the old shipwright. "Son, hold on, father will take you away." As soon as the shipwright shouted, a blade spider rushed over in a tricky way, dodging the big guy's arm attack and stabbing the old shipwright's chest. The old shipwright's body violently shook, bright red blood quickly soaked his clothes, all the strength in his body quickly flowed out of the wound. "Father!" The big guy let out a pitiful scream. Zongu finally had the chance. He jumped down and killed the blade spider with a hammer strike. But seeing the old shipwright's injuries, his heart sank. This was a fatal injury, there was no saving him. "Quickly climb onto the ship, I'll cover you," Zongu shouted at the big guy. The big guy just stared blankly at the old shipwright, ignoring Zongji's shout. "Hurry up and push, you damned idiot," Black Curls urged the big guy. The big guy suddenly went crazy. He crawled to the old shipwright's side, disregarding his own life to drive away the demon beasts. When the demon beasts counterattacked, he used his body to protect the old shipwright. The wounds on his body were so deep that his bones could be seen. Seeing this, Zongu let out a deep sigh. He shouted at the people on the ship, "Some of you come down, move the rocks in front of us." Another group of people pushed the ship. But in this situation, the beast tide was squeezing the hull of the ship. Who could carry out such a dangerous task? Only Sandow and a few former mercenaries jumped down, trying to save themselves with Zongu. Woof woof woof. Sensing these people's actions, the blue dogs, foxes, and wolves barked again. Thus, the beast tide immediately changed their target. They gave up on the old shipwright and the big guy, and went straight for the ship, attacking Zongu and the others crazily. "Where's the medicine? Is there any medicine that can be used?" Heiwan shouted at ZD. His eyes were red, the pressure of being on the verge of death made him crazy. He lost his composure. ZD lightly shook her head. "It's all used up." Damn it, damn it." Heiwan used his thin sword to kill a bat monkey, and looked down the ship. Zongu, Sandow and the others were worried about protecting themselves, not to mention clearing the obstacles and pushing the ship. Fierce magical beasts rushed to the deck. The white rhinoceros crashed into the side of the ship, creating holes. Heiwan looked around, his face was blank. The screams of the people, the trembling of the ship, the gray sky, everything was like a nightmare. "Xingming Emperor, if this is a nightmare, please let me wake up. I beg you." Heiwan prayed in his heart. He was pushed to the limit, the huge pressure made him on the verge of mental breakdown. Roar. Suddenly, a beast roar made Heiwan's body tremble. He subconsciously looked over. The beast roar was right in front of him, but it was not from a magical beast, it was from a person. But in the next moment, this person's hair grew crazily, his body expanded, and turned into a man with a tiger head. What's going on? Heiwan's eyeballs almost fell to the ground. Then, he saw with his own eyes that his companion, who had turned into a tiger head, suddenly pounced and used his mouth full of sharp teeth to bite a brown monkey tail bear to death. Beast roars sounded one after another. It was not just him, but many others. They grew claws, teeth, tails, and horns in an instant. What's going on? Sangsu, ZD, and the others were extremely shocked. These beastly companions seemed to have lost their minds, only the desire to kill. The magical beasts died one after another, and even the humans around them were in their choice of attack. They're crazy. They even killed their companions. Get away from them. The survivors huddled together, occupying the corner of the aft building of the deck. They were extremely shocked, and looked at the counterattack of their beastly companions in confusion. These beastly people started a crazy massacre, their delirium made them disregard their lives, and the magical beasts were defeated. All along, the human body had been weak. Even if one's cultivation of battle energy was successful and their physical fitness was high, there was often a huge gap between them and magical beasts of the same level of life. But now, after these humans had turned into beasts, their explosive strength, defense, agility, and so on completely surpassed the magical beasts. Since the start of the battle, the magical beast army's offensive was hindered for the first time. Soon, the magical beasts around the hull were cleared, and the beastly people continued their counterattack. It seemed that they would deal with whoever was the biggest threat. Zhenjin came out. He had completely mutated underground and killed all the sandworms before he could escape. He hurried back to the main battlefield, only to find these beastly people. At this moment, Zhenjin was extremely shocked and puzzled. What's going on? Could it be that they also have a core? Chapter 153. The Beast Tide retreated. After the war-creatures appeared, they launched a frenzied counterattack, and the magical beasts were actually defeated by them. The blue dog fox wolf did their best to command and display exquisite tactic. If not for Zhenjin, their efforts might have been effective. After seeing the war-creatures outburst and counterattack, Zhenjin suppressed the shock and doubt in his heart and continued to hunt down the blue dog fox wolf at the back. Most of the magical beast army's strength was concentrated at the front lines, around the new ship. The tactic they used was to temporarily ignore Zhenjin. In the end, because of the sudden appearance of the war-creatures, Zhenjin gained the initiative. After killing 3 blue dog fox wolves in a row, the last remaining blue dog fox wolf finally escaped far away with the remnants of its defeated army. Zhenjin could not catch up to it. In fact, his stamina was almost depleted. Beheading the leader was extremely difficult, especially in a head-on battle like this. After losing 90% of their military strength, the remaining magical beast army was no longer a threat. The blue dog fox wolf's fleeing appearance was also very frightened. It would not cause any trouble for the time being. Not long after the magical beast army retreated, the war-creatures who had erupted also fell to the ground with a thud, one by one losing all signs of life. We survived. Many people sat down on the deck, paralyzed. I actually survived. After that, more people cried tears of joy. What the hell is going on? What the hell? Hei Wan stood on the ship, looking at the corpses of the magical beasts that had died tragically around him, as well as the war-creatures that had died one by one. Fear still lingered on his face. All of this happened too suddenly, and it deeply shocked him. Zhenjin rushed back. He was still wearing the golden scorpion armor. Because he was a war-creature, he did not completely mutate in this battle. Seeing that Sang-Su, ZD, and the others were in a sorry state with some minor injuries, Zhenjin could not help but secretly breathe a sigh of relief. However, even though they had won the battle, the survivors had suffered heavy casualties. Originally, there were more than 200 people, but after the earthquake and the slaughter, there were less than 50 people left. There were many lightly wounded, but few seriously wounded. The intensity of the battle was too great, and there were no reserves like the defensive battle of the camp. Basically, those who were seriously wounded would be quickly killed. The others could immerse themselves in their own emotions, but as the leader, Zhenjin could not. Under his orders, people began to quickly clean up the battlefield and treat the wounded. The old shipwright is still breathing, and the big guy is still alive, but things aren't looking good either. Not long after, someone reported. This result was somewhat inconceivable because many people on the deck had died. The father and son outside the boat were still on the verge of death. In fact, this was all thanks to the blue dog fox and wolf. It was their orders that made the magical beasts let the father and son go for the time being. Zhenjin quickly rushed over. The big guy was on the ground, but his arms were still wrapped around the old shipwright. His injuries were so severe that people mistakenly thought he was going to die. His cut-off legs were badly mutilated, but because of the giant's blood, it stopped bleeding. The old shipwright's injuries were fatal. He lay on the ground, motionless. Because he lost too much blood, his face was ashen. But when he saw Zhenjin, his already lifeless eyes suddenly emitted a glimmer of light. Obviously he had something to say. ZD, is there any way? In grief, Zhenjin looked at his fiancée for help. ZD did not disappoint him, and quickly took out a bottle of medicine from her empty purse. Zhenjin took it, and poured it into the old shipwright's mouth. The old shipwright's face immediately flushed red. "Sir, Lord Zhenjin, I have something to ask of you. Please promise me, take my son away, take him away." The old shipwright begged in a weak voice. "He's still alive, I'll take him away. He's a true warrior." Zhenjin immediately agreed. "No, father. I want to be with you," the big guy cried, his chin on the ground, looking at the old shipwright. His injuries were too severe, he had no strength left, he couldn't get up. The giant's blood was once again keeping him alive. But his face was filled with the will to die. If the old shipwright died, he didn't want to live anymore. The old shipwright couldn't get up, he couldn't even turn his head. He couldn't see the big guy, but he knew the big guy was behind him. The old shipwright smiled bitterly with a regretful, sad, nostalgic, but also hopeful. He whispered, "I'm sorry, son, father can't take you away, but you have to live, you're still so young, father, I won't go, I want to be with you, if you die, then we'll die together." The big guy's attitude was very firm, he already realized that the old shipwright's death was unavoidable, his face was filled with tears. "You idiot," the old shipwright wanted to scold him, but his tone was light, it was more like he was trying to comfort and pamper him. No matter how the old shipwright persuaded, the big guy wouldn't change his attitude. Zhenjin also showed a worried expression. Even if he knocked the big guy unconscious, he couldn't let him live. He understood the big guy. He couldn't stop the big guy from seeking death. After a few words of persuasion, the old shipwright couldn't hold on. He felt his life quickly slipping away. He couldn't drag this out. In a moment of desperation, an idea flashed through his mind. He forced his voice a bit higher. "Idiot, I'm not your father. No, father, you can't chase me away. I want to die with you. You're my only family." The old shipwright looked at Zhenjin. "You idiot, Lord Zhenjin, he's your father. Your real father." The big guy stared. "Father, what are you talking about?" When the surrounding people heard this, they were also very shocked. The old shipwright looked at Zhenjin, his face full of pleading. Zhenjin was silent, he nodded slightly to the old shipwright. The old shipwright's eyes were filled with extreme gratitude. He coughed violently, spitting out mouthfuls of blood. He continued to speak to the big guy. "There are some things that you already knew, idiot. I'm a human, you're a giant. I'm only your foster father. Sigh. At this point, this secret, I don't want to hide it anymore, but I also have human blood in me. You idiot, I'm only a normal shipwright, how could I be related to a female giant? Didn't you ask me a while ago? Didn't you really want to see your real parents? Now I'll tell you. Your real father is right in front of you, it's him, Lord Zhenjin." The big guy opened his mouth wide. He stared blankly at the old shipwright, then at Zhenjin. The others maintained their silence. They could all see that the old shipwright was deliberately lying to the big guy so that he could live on. Zhenjin sighed, he looked at the big guy. "It's like this. Big guy, you are actually my son." "No, no." The big guy shook his head, he believed it, but this news was too shocking, he couldn't accept it immediately. "What else?" The dying old shipwright was very anxious. "Your father is stronger than you, and this old man is just a normal person. Your father also understands you, loves you. How many times has he only knocked you out? He has never hurt you. Do you think that other people can do this? He also values you, he doesn't discriminate against you at all. Don't you think it's strange? You want to be close to him, right? This is very natural because of your blood relationship, you are attracted to each other, unconsciously getting close to each other. This is the blood relationship between father and son." The old shipwright's nonsense made the surrounding people grin, they forced themselves to endure. But to the big guy, the old shipwright's words were enlightening, every word was the hard truth. "I wanted to hide this secret before, because if this secret was exposed, It wouldn't be good for your real father. He is a noble, and a knight. To have an illegitimate son like you, to him, it is very dishonorable. But you idiot, you want to die with me, this old man, so I can only reveal it. Forgive me, foolish boy, I am only your foster father. If you want to live, your real father is here, quickly call him father, the old shipwright urged. What he said was the truth. Having such a half-giant son was a stain on the human noble's life. It would destroy the noble's reputation. Not to mention that Zhenjin was a temple knight. Right now, the old shipwright was taking advantage of the fact that he was on the verge of death to beg for a golden needle. If it was a normal noble, they would have already reprimanded or even whipped the old shipwright for speaking nonsense. But Zhenjin was different. In this period of time, the old shipwright had realized many times that Zhenjin was a very unique noble. He was really compassionate, benevolent, and broad-minded. It didn't match his young age. The old shipwright was using Zhenjin's compassion, but he was also very worried that Zhenjin would go back on his words. So, he wanted to confirm the relationship between the big guy and Zhenjin while he still had a breath left. This way, Zhenjin wouldn't have any leeway to go back on his words. Of course, the old shipwright didn't think that Zhenjin would go back on his words, but as a father who was about to die, he wanted to seize every opportunity at the last moment of his life to add more insurance. The big guy couldn't say anything. He already believed the old shipwright. In fact, he had always listened to the old shipwright and believed his words without a doubt. But he couldn't shout. He didn't know why, but in front of the old shipwright, he couldn't call another person father. The old shipwright didn't hear the big guy's reply for a long time, and his vision started to turn black. I'm already satisfied to be able to hand you over to your biological father. You have to live, silly boy. You have to live. You have to be good, listen to your father, little boy. The old shipwright hadn't called him little boy in a long time. The big guy's body shook when he heard it. Death was coming. The old shipwright clearly felt this. So this is the taste of death. I really want to call him son, but he couldn't. He needed to deceive the big guy. Scenes of the past quickly flashed in front of his eyes. In the cabin of the Pig's Kiss. Wah wah wah. A baby's cries attracted a group of crew members to investigate. Heavens, look, what did I find? The old shipwright carried a baby out from the corner. My God, it's really a child. Someone gave birth on the Pig's Kiss and left a child for us. Which immoral person did it? I'm afraid it's an illegitimate child, directly abandoning him, such a heartless mother. After discussing for a while, they all turned and left. The old shipwright was stunned, hugging the baby. Hey, what should we do with this little guy? The other crew members shrugged their shoulders irresponsibly, some laughed. Old four, this is a child you picked up, you have to take responsibility. Bullshit. The old shipwright was furious, looking at the baby in his arms like he was hugging a hot potato. He really wanted to throw him away. The crew members all scattered. No one wanted to be involved in this trouble. The old shipwright was helpless. He could only carry the baby and find the captain. Poor little guy, being born in this world is your misfortune. Maybe you should give him a release. How can we raise a child on the ship? The captain said. The old shipwright shook his head. He couldn't do it. The captain said. Then when we reach the port, find a suitable person and entrust him. Only then did the old shipwright nod his head. However, how could he find a suitable person? The Pig Kiss docked at the port many times, but the time was very short. In a short time, the old shipwright was unfamiliar with the place. It was hard for him to find a trustworthy and suitable person. I can only go to the next port. With such thoughts, the baby stayed on the ship under the care of the old shipwright. Damn it, he pooped again. He eats a lot, so he poops a lot. The old shipwright frowned as he changed the baby's diaper. He has a fever. What should I do? What should I do? The old shipwright was anxious. Why is he crying? Is he hungry? He is clearly full. The old shipwright couldn't find the reason, he could only learn to sing a lullaby. Little boy, don't cry, little boy, don't make a fuss, let me cherish you. The surrounding crew members laughed. Hey, shipwright, this is a lullaby, how is this a lullaby? Time passed. A year later, the baby started to show signs of being out of the ordinary. He could eat too much. The extent to which he could eat had already exceeded the shipwright's tolerance. The cabin was a mess, the baby still continued to rummage through the cabinet. What are you doing? You little bastard! Ah, you ate all my tobacco? You idiot, idiot! The old shipwright slapped his butt. Plop! The old shipwright collapsed on the deck. Oh my God! You're crazy, shipwright! You gave all your food to that baby and did such heavy work yourself, you fainted on the deck. You should be glad that today's storm isn't that big. Why are you working so hard? I really don't understand you. If it were up to me, you should have thrown him away a long time ago. The crew members all shook their heads, expressing that they didn't understand. I should have thrown him away, but who should I throw him to? Late at night, the old shipwright was woken up by the pain. Why did you bite me? You idiot, I'm not a girl, there's no milk here. The injured and furious old shipwright slapped the big guy's small buttocks again. The baby, wah wah wah, they reached the shore. The old shipwright came to the bar. The bartender saw an acquaintance and smiled. Old shipwright, do you want rum or beer? Do you have milk? The bartender was stunned. Human milk is fine too. The bartender was stunned, then looked at the old shipwright again. Old man, your taste has changed a lot, did you get stimulated by something? The crew members around him laughed at him. He's gone crazy. It's all because of his son. That's definitely a little monster, I've never seen a baby that can eat so much. Oh my God, his appetite is even bigger than mine. What did you do? Oh my God. Half a day later, the shipwright looked at the cracks and even holes on the deck. His hands tore at his hair, almost going crazy. The baby sat on the side, confused. Father, you told me to work hard. The pig-kiss captain's face was gloomy. Throw him away. If I keep him, one day my deck will be gone, my sails will be gone. Maybe, when I wake up from my afternoon nap, the entire ship will be gone. The old shipwright begged, but the captain's attitude was firm. Plop! The old shipwright bent his knees and directly knelt on the ground. No matter the price, I'll compensate you. I can build ships. When you recruited me, didn't you see my ability? The captain narrowed his eyes and looked down at the shipwright. If I remember correctly, you still owe me a debt, right? Not long later, you'll be able to pay off your debt and regain your freedom. Then I'll let my debt be extended. The captain snorted. You're already so old, according to your current salary, including the losses this time. If you want to pay off your debt, you'll have to work for me for 3 more years. But in these 3 years, won't the baby make any mistakes? Don't be stupid. He's a retard, he won't be able to learn anything, and he'll even mess up something normal. If this continues, you won't be able to pay off your debt for the rest of your life. The old shipwright suddenly raised his head and straightened his upper body. Then I'll pay for the rest of my life. The captain was stunned. A boarding battle had just ended, fresh blood flowed on the deck. The shipwright bandaged the baby's wound. I told you not to charge forward, you idiot. But they hit father. They're bad people. The baby retorted. You even learned to talk back. The shipwright angrily stared at the baby. Damn it, there's not enough medicine. The bleeding won't stop. Damn it, damn it. Father, don't worry, I'm not in pain. The baby comforted. You shut up. The shipwright subconsciously slapped the baby's head, but just as he moved, he realized that it was inappropriate and quickly withdrew most of his strength. Late at night, on the deck, the baby's snores were deafening. The old shipwright sat in front of him, looking at the bandages on his body, sighed and whispered to himself. It's not that father is cruel, silly boy. It's not easy to stay on this ship. No one likes to raise trash, you have to contribute. Your father's body is getting worse day by day. I hope that one day you can survive on your own without me. After some tenderness, the madam persuaded the old shipwright. I've been a widow for many years. I have a small manor outside Garden City. Come with me, there are no storms in the manor. You can even build a small boat with my support. I know that building boats is your dream. But I have to give him up, right? The old shipwright sat on the bed, bending over and looking out the door. He knew that the baby was outside the door. He must be squatting on the ground, staring at the door. Of course. The madam's attitude was without hesitation. A bastard mixed with the blood of giants, and a fool. If I bring him back to the manor, I will be laughed at by everyone. Then I refuse. The old shipwright shook his head, his attitude firm. This is already the third time I've mentioned it. The madam frowned, her expression unhappy. Are you sure? You don't have any blood relations with him? I'm sure, honorable madam. The old shipwright sighed. I can live without him, but he can't live without me. In this world mountain, he only has me. To be able to receive madam's favor is the luckiest thing in my life. I'm very grateful to you, thank you. The madam's voice turned cold. Do you know what you're giving up? The old shipwright looked at the door and smiled. Then do you know what I'm getting? The drug's effect dissipated, the old shipwright's eyelids became heavier. He tried his best to hold on, but could only open his eyes a little. His body had used up all its energy, an unparalleled exhaustion enveloped his body. I'm so tired, I can finally rest this time. But, I'm worried. Is this the only way? Lord Jinjin, he is definitely not an ordinary person. As long as he reveals a little bit from now on, he will be able to feed that fool. After all, that fool is also very capable. He admitted my lies, I also believe in his character. But there is still a trace of regret. How I wish to hear your voice at the end of my life. Just one more time. Even one more time would be good. The old shipwright's breath became weaker and weaker. The baby propped up his upper body, using his hands to support himself. He tried his best to crawl towards the old shipwright. Looking at his father walking towards death, he stopped his movements midway, a huge sadness like a tsunami, drowning his entire body. But other than sadness, there was also endless loss and fear. The support that supported him to survive in this cruel world is gone. The gentleness that supported him to face this cruel world is gone. It was like he suddenly fell from the sky, like a thin leaf floating in the abyss. How big his body was, how small and weak his soul was. At this time, Jinjin walked forward, half kneeling on the ground, facing the baby, opened his arms and hugged him. The baby was stunned. At this moment, his falling heart seemed to have returned to the ground. The young man sighed, softly saying, "If you want to cry, cry it out." The baby's mouth curved, his lower lip covering his upper lip, constantly trembling. He tried his best to hold back, not wanting to cry. Because when he was very young, he cried loudly on the ship, very annoying, so the old shipwright taught him a lesson. The big guy bit his upper lip hard, but tears were already rolling down his face. After a moment of silence, the pain and sadness in his heart finally made it hard for him to hold on. "Father!" he suddenly roared. He was extremely sorrowful and heartbroken. Then, "Wah!" he cried loudly in Jinjin's arms. He cried until his voice was hoarse. The sound waves spread through the rubble, shaking the broken ship, echoing in the rainforest. During the battle, the hastily lit bonfire was still burning. Under the illumination of the fire, the old shipwright was no longer breathing. But the corner of his mouth seemed to be slightly raised, as if he was smiling. Chapter 154. This was the bottom compartment of the new ship. According to the plan, it was used to store supplies, so it had the most space. There was a row of war-creature corpses in the cabin. The dissection was over. Zhenjin, Sang-Soo, and the others walked out of the cabin. They don't have blood nuclei in their bodies. How did this happen? Zhenjin had been there the whole time and had witnessed the entire dissection process. The fact that the truth was different from what he had expected made him even more puzzled. When they returned to the cabin used to discuss matters, Sang-Soo couldn't help but sigh. It's hard to imagine. This kind of beastification isn't magic, but it actually changed the human bloodline. It's really too amazing. They were originally of human bloodline, but now they've all become mixed-blood beastmen and humans. Just from the current dissection, we can't see any flaws at all. It's as if these people were born like this. Zhen Jin asked, so, how did they become like this? Sang-Soo shook his head and sighed. I'm not sure. I can only do a simple dissection. It's normal that I can't see the deeper reason. I'm not a magician. No, even a magician might not be able to see the reason behind it, ZD said with a serious expression. The master of this island is really too unfathomable. Maybe our previous guess was wrong. Those modified magical beasts weren't cultivated in the alchemy room or the magician tower, but on this island. The entire island is his breeding ground. What do you mean? Zhonggu frowned. Don't you think that these war-creatures are very similar to those modified magical beasts? ZD said. Of course, whether it's war-creatures or modified magical beasts, they're all like pieced-together parts of various lives, Sandao said. Zhenjin knew what ZD meant. He had a distressed expression. So the key question is, what exactly caused our companions to become like this? ZD, have you found anything? ZD shook her head. I don't have any evidence. I'm just guessing. The master of the island had set up a gigantic magic array or some other kind of arrangement on the island. These arrangements forced us to teleport randomly, creating an environment where magic was forbidden, and even had the effect of controlling the weather. Other than that, perhaps it can also subtly change the various lifeforms on the island. I'm afraid this is the reason why our companions turned into beasts. Then why didn't we mutate? Someone raised an objection. Is it personal strength? No, there are normal people who haven't mutated. Bronze-level members have also turned into beasts and died. Did he eat the food here? Who hasn't eaten the magical beast meat here? Who hasn't drunk the water here? Is it because he was injured before? Someone guessed. We're basically all injured. No, I'm talking about serious injuries. Or a more unique injury. That's too hard to calculate. Even I might not be able to remember everything that happened on this island. Zhen Jin's heart skipped a beat as he listened to the crowd's discussion. He suddenly remembered that he had been stung by the fire venom bee. At that time, his injuries were extremely serious. After that, he had been instilled with the blood of the monkey-tail brown bear. Sang-Soo said in a low voice, maybe we've already started to mutate, but the degree hasn't reached the level of qualitative change, so we haven't turned into beasts. Beasts might require a lot of mental stimulation, otherwise when we were defending the island, there should have been one or two beasts. Hearing Sang-Soo's guess, everyone's heart sank. Sang-Soo continued, or maybe, these transformed magical beasts weren't pure wild beasts or magical beasts in the first place. Hei-Wan's face turned pale. What do you mean? Don't you think that the blue dog fox wolf is too intelligent? If they were originally human. Sang-Soo's gaze under the lens was so calm that it was frightening. Horror quickly spread in everyone's hearts. Sang-Soo continued, let's imagine, are we really the only victims? The shipwreck happened too suddenly. After meeting up with everyone, I asked as many people as possible. The crew said that the pig's kiss was in good condition on the night of the shipwreck. There were no signs of shipwreck at all. The master of the island didn't have to personally attack us. If he had some kind of arrangement on the sea near the island. For someone as powerful as him, destroying the pig's kiss would be an extremely easy task. If we were to make a bold guess, the pig's kiss isn't special. It's very likely that it wasn't the first case in the Yuhai Islands. If there were ships that had been shipwrecked before, then where did the survivors go? The degree of transformation of these people was different. Some were mild, while others were more severe. Perhaps this means that the degree of transformation isn't fixed, but can be continuously deepened. If they completely transformed, what would they become? Would they become a monkey-tail brown bear, a crocodile-head hammertail brown bear, or a blue dog fox wolf? Everyone, including Zhenjin, had ugly expressions on their faces. Shisua blinked as he listened. In the past few hundred years, the technology of ships has been constantly improving, and the communication between continents has become very frequent. There are also more and more pirates on the sea route, and pirate activities are becoming more and more rampant. The Pig's Kisses route is already relatively safe. I always thought that those unfortunate ships that went missing either died in the waves or at the hands of pirates. But wait, if these transformed magical beasts were once humans, then they were also victims. Why didn't they come and help us overthrow the master of the island? Sang-Soo shook his head. Their temperament has changed drastically. Just like the beastmen, they were our companions one moment, but the next moment they could kill us. Perhaps after becoming a magical beast, they knew deep in their hearts that they couldn't go back, so they hated us even more. This kind of change in temperament is very likely the work of the master of the island. After surviving on this island for so long, the truth of this island was still covered in layers of fog. Sang-Soo's words seemed to have cleared up a corner of the fog. However, the truth was so cruel and terrible that it made almost everyone shudder. Hei-Wan grabbed her curly hair, gritted her teeth and cursed, "I've had enough of this damn place. What's the point of guessing so much? Let's hurry up and fix the ship and leave this place as soon as possible." "Yes, we have to do our best to fix it. If we delay any longer, it will be bad if the magical beast army reinforcements come." Lan Zhao agreed. Shisua shook his head and smiled bitterly, stating the truth in a very heavy tone. "The situation is worse than you think. I'm afraid this ship can't be fixed." "How is that possible?" Many people stared. Sigh. Shisua sighed deeply. "Don't stare at me, I'm the same as you. Of course, I want the new ship to be in better condition. But it's in terrible condition. Believe me, although I'm not as good as the old shipwright, this ship's condition is too obvious. No matter which cashier you ask, as long as you have a little bit of experience, you'll know that this ship can't sail in the sea. Don't think that the hull is still there, the structure hasn't been damaged much, and only a few cabins seem to have been damaged. But it's useless. The keel almost broke. We can repair it with some difficulty, and let it linger on in the calm sea. But it can't compete with the wind and waves. We still have half of the voyage. How can there be no wind and waves? In fact, compared to the first half, the second half will be much more stormy. Using this ship to sail is simply courting death." The cabin fell into a dead silence. "What about rebuilding the ship?" After a while, someone broke the silence. "We don't have a shipwright." Shisua sighed. Hei-Wan retorted, "But we have the blueprints, many of us have participated in it and have experience." Shisua shook his head. "It's too difficult. Do you think it's so easy to build a ship?" "The shipwright designed the blueprints based on the existing materials. We may be able to modify the blueprints, but what about the wood and nails? We need to gather materials again. Rainforest wood is mostly substandard, we need wood from the forest. This ship has a lot of materials, but dismantling it will take a lot of labor and time. When dismantling it, it will be violent destruction and a lot of things will be damaged. We need iron ore to rebuild the kiln. We have less than a quarter of the original crew, and building a new ship will take more time. At that time, the magical beast army will attack us. What should we do? So there's no hope? Hei-Wan stared. Maybe we can only wait for rescue. Suo said this and couldn't help but look at Zhenjin. The meaning behind his words was very clear. If a big shot like Zhenjin was in trouble, the 100 Needles family would definitely come to their rescue. Zhenjin smiled bitterly and shook his head. I can't guarantee rescue. We have no way to send out the request for help right now. Heiwan also shook his head, his face bleak. It's been several months and we still haven't received any rescue. This is obviously not normal. I know the route of the Pig's Kiss. This area has been explored long ago, and there are relatively few pirate activities. But with so many ships, none of them have ever found this island. This island can be isolated from the outside world and hide itself. Everyone discussed for a while, but there was no good way. It seemed that the only choice was to wait for rescue. Let's rest first, we can't rush to find a solution in one night. Zhenjin finally said. The new ship couldn't sail, but it was still the best choice for a camp. The night sky was dotted with stars. On the deck, the big guy was sleeping. The first floor wasn't built, so the big guy didn't have a suitable room. Zhenjin sat in front of the big guy, watching his chest weakly rise and fall with every breath, and he smiled bitterly in his heart. After such a fierce battle, Zhenjin was extremely tired, but the anxiety, doubt, loss, and helplessness in his heart made him unable to sleep. The old shipwright had asked for help before his death, but now he couldn't guarantee his survival. Wait for rescue? Intuition in his heart told Zhenjin that there was probably no rescue. Looking up at the starry sky, the young knight's heart was filled with misery. He worked hard, tried his best to survive. How many times did he struggle on the line between life and death? How many times did he clench his teeth after failing? But in the end, he still fell into such a situation. We were clearly about to succeed. If we knew this, we would have sped up, shortened the construction period, and brought forward the time caused by the new ship. Unfortunately, the truth was like this. Was there a medicine for regret in this world? At least Zhenjin didn't. He couldn't do it again. Looking down, he saw the big guy's broken leg. He had to admit that it was as if they had broken their legs and were trapped on the island. There was no way out. It was a desperate situation. Chapter 155. Zhenjin, who had fallen into a desperate situation, was still full of doubts. They don't have the heart core, but I do. Why? What is the cause of this? What is the cause of the heart core's formation? Is it poison? Is it because my injuries are more serious, and my body contains more fire poison? Or is it luck, willpower? Or is it a combination of strength, luck, and injuries? In addition to doubts, there was also a lot of fear in Zhenjin's heart. Will I become like this one day? Will I fall into a state of complete berserk madness, without any rationality, and even kill my companions? Is my temperament really not affected by the heart core? As Zhenjin continued to reflect, the fear in his heart deepened. No, I'm afraid I'm deeply affected. I was so worried and afraid of the heart core before, but due to the circumstances, after using it too many times, I began to unconsciously accept it. Now I'm deeply dependent on it. If I hadn't been self-reflecting, I'm afraid I would have been infatuated with it. Every time I use the heart core and transform into a monster, my temperament seems to become arrogant, and I despise all life forms weaker than me from the bottom of my heart. Absorb and transform. I'm already immersed in this power, and gradually can't control myself. My actions, my thoughts, are actually deviating from the path of a holy knight. I seem to have been falling. God, my Lord, the great Xingming Emperor, please respond to me. I beg for your mercy, I beg for your salvation. Here, there is your lost lamb. Zhenjin once again half knelt on the deck, facing the direction of the Xingming continent, and lowered his head to pray. Like all the previous prayers, the result was still no response. The prayer this time was different from the recent night prayers. Jin's heart could no longer find the slightest bit of peace and comfort. Because he realized his own depravity, and also realized a possibility. The reason why the Xingming Emperor did not respond to him, was it because he had already fallen? Could it be that I'm a depraved fallen knight? What should I do? Should I confess? Tell my companions that I'm also a mutation, that I'm actually a monster? No, I can't do that. As the leader, Jin knew very well that the current situation of the team was very dangerous. Their collapse could happen at any moment. Previously, there was hope for a new ship to sail, but now everyone was in a desperate situation. Even if I have already fallen and am no longer a temple knight, even if I am actually a modified magical beast, I should still play the role of a leader. They needed a leader, a Knight Templar, someone to rely on, and a new hope. Even Jin himself had no one to rely on and no hope. This was the burden that a leader should bear. Jin gradually felt out of breath. After experiencing all sorts of hardships, his mental state had transformed many times, and he was no longer the same as before. However, the heavy feeling that made it hard for him to breathe struck him again. Once again, he realized his naivety. His fear came not only from his surroundings, but also from his own future and the safety of his companions. Now he was still afraid of himself. If at some point I completely become a beast, lose my rationality, and hurt others, what should I do? I might even kill Tsang Su, Lan Zhao, and even ZD with my own hands. If something like that happens, what should I do? Can I control all sorts of mutations? For a short period of time, it seems so. It seems that I have a heart core. The heart core should allow me to perfectly control the mutations, right? Jin had no way to explode. He was not even sure how the heart core was formed. Perhaps he was not far from completely becoming a berserk beast. He was not far from completely going crazy. Perhaps in a few days, which would be the next time. Perhaps I'm not the only one with this hidden danger. Others have it too. These beastly companions are only the first batch. Next, there will be a second batch, a third batch, and even the last survivors will become one of the magical beasts seen on this island. They will hate all outsiders, and only think of themselves as magical beasts. Their humanity will be gone, and they will have no memories. This future was so cruel that Jin felt a chill in his heart every time he thought of it. He suddenly thought, wait, could it be because of my amnesia? Why would my beastly companions fall into madness? Maybe it's because of the intense conflict and contradiction between their inherent memories and their own life form. They cannot accept it and thus become crazy. Why am I the only one who can control the mutations? Am I the only one who has a heart core? Maybe amnesia is the main reason. It's because I have amnesia, but I still adhere to my beliefs and the path of a knight. Therefore, I did not have the intense conflict between the two, and retained my humanity to the greatest extent. How does the master of this island make people become beastly? Maybe the environment he changed was to make people lose their humanity. After a long time here, our humanity will be eroded by our bestial nature and gradually devoured. The more devoured, the deeper our bestial nature. In the end, we will completely lose our humanity, be completely covered by our bestial nature, and become completely crazy? And every time, I adhere to my principles and bottom line. This is the victory of humanity over the bestial nature. The accumulation of these victories has allowed me to have a heart core, allowing me to rationally control the mutations, while others cannot. If this conjecture is true, then if I use my heart core to absorb my beastly companions, will I absorb their bestial nature and allow them to regain their rationality? No, my heart core absorbs the bloodline. My beastly companions have a mixture of magical beast bloodline and human bloodline. I will absorb all these bloodlines. Those magical beast bloodlines, actually, I have all of them now. But I don't have human bloodlines. If I add these bloodlines, will I be able to stabilize my human nature? Will it prolong the time before I become completely crazy? Thinking of this, Zhen Jin's body suddenly trembled and his face turned pale. Damn it! What's wrong with me? I actually want to attack my companions, attack the human race. However, another voice sounded in Zhen Jin's heart. Don't restrict your actions anymore. You should be bolder. We are now in a desperate situation. If you let yourself be restrained, it will be too late when the final death comes. You can't do it again, can you? Besides, I'm not asking you to kill people with your own hands. I'm just asking you to absorb those dead companions. They are going to be buried anyway and have no other value. It's just recycling waste. Hurry up and do it, it will be too late if you don't. These people just died not long ago. If you absorb them now, it will be much more beneficial than doing it later. Don't forget your family. You are also thinking of others. If it weren't for these people dragging you down, you could have mutated and escaped from this island by yourself. It's because of them that you are staying here, isn't it? Don't cling on to unnecessary things. Think carefully, how many times have you regretted it? What were you thinking when you were almost killed by Spear Scorpion? Just now, don't you regret it? Do you want the tragedy to happen again? This time it was old Shipwright. What about next time? Lan Zhao? Song Su? Or ZD? No, don't say any more. Don't say any more. Zhen Jin was in great pain. He went from kneeling to kneeling on both knees. He lowered his head and buried his face in his palms. His thoughts were overflowing. He suspected that he had fallen. The confidence that had always supported him had dissipated by more than half. He started to be confused. He could not tell which of these thoughts he was pondering were rational advice, and which were depraved temptations. Zhen Jin fell into an unprecedented turmoil and confusion. In the next moment, he was really shaken. Rumble! Amidst the huge explosion, the earth and sky shook. Once again, the earth and mountains shook. The sleeping survivors all screamed in fear and ran out of the cabin with all their might. The earthquake came again, and the scale was even bigger than the previous one. In front of everyone's eyes, the ground cracked open. The island shifted, and the crack became bigger and bigger. It extended from the direction of the volcano, and directly split open the beach, forming the estuary. The seawater poured in, and the waves surged. After 20 breaths of time, the earthquake slowly subsided. A brand new river appeared in front of everyone. Everyone looked at the wide river and were shocked speechless. After a long time, the people who were still in shock gradually came to their senses. Qiao Fan directly knelt on the ground and cried softly, "Can we really hold on? Can we really escape from here?" No one could answer her question. Even Zhen Jin was silent. Even if we can hold on, this island won't be able to hold on for much longer. He Wan sighed. Everyone was in despair. The survivors were gloomy. Maybe I have a way, ZD suddenly said. These words attracted everyone's attention. ZD's face revealed a look of hesitation. Hurry up and say it. Why are you hesitating at this time? He Wan urged. ZD took a deep breath and suddenly pointed at the volcano. We can go to the center. There might be hope of survival there. Almost everyone's eyes widened, wondering if they had heard wrong. Sang Su, Zhen Jin, and Zhong Gu faltered for a moment before coming to their senses and remaining silent. ZD continued, "Do you still remember what we analyzed? This island has a master. He must be a mighty figure. He modified this island, modified the demonic beasts, and even controlled the weather. He seems to be cultivating biological weapons here. However, regardless of whether it's a magic sealing environment, whether control or teleportation, all of these require a magic spell formation. There must be a core of a magic spell formation on this island, or it could even be a Magus Tower. As long as we can take over the core, we'll have a chance of escaping. Please, how can we be a match for the master of this island? Shisua had only just finished yelling when he was dumbstruck. He stared blankly at the river in the fissure, then at the erupting volcano in the distance, and then at the dark volcanic clouds above his head. Shisua suddenly yelled, "I'm afraid something has happened to the master of this island. The magic spell formation is obviously out of control. The volcano is erupting, and the earth is cracking. No, wait, when we just returned to the beach, the weather became very abnormal. It was either torrential rain or continuous rain. We've never encountered anything like that before. It's very likely that it was already out of control at that time. Maybe it was even earlier." Zhen Jin said, "In our earliest days we encountered the blue dog fox wolf. These kinds of demonic beasts are all alone. But when we encountered them in the forest, they had already formed a magical beast army around them. Controlling the magical beast army is a great burden for the blue dog fox wolf. Creating the strange fragrance consumes magic power. The blue dog fox wolf has been controlling the magical beast army for a long time. It must devour other demonic beasts to replenish its magic power and continue to create the strange fragrance." Song Su nodded and added, "And the larger the magical beast army is, the greater the burden on the surrounding ecological environment. These demonic beasts all need to eat. So, the blue dog fox wolf's entanglement with the magical beast army is obviously not normal. We stayed in the small valley, and the magical beast army took the initiative to attack and continued to reinforce them. This posture is obviously to wipe out the enemy. Let's make a bold guess. It's very likely that the master of this island gave the order to control the blue dog fox wolf and let them destroy all outsiders. If he's in good condition, he can destroy us in the time it takes to breathe, and the island won't be so unstable. But he didn't do that. He left the island alone and only ordered the magical beast army to deal with us. This means that he's very weak and can only let the blue dog fox wolf fight. He's also afraid that we'll escape and expose this place. It's even very likely that he's already dead. Or he's tied up outside for some reason and can't come back in time." Zhonggu nodded. "That's true. Now is the best time for us to attack the Central Command. If we delay, we'll only die." Everyone was stunned. Heiwan swallowed his saliva. "Then why do we have to rush to the Central Command? The volcano is erupting there. Can you be sure that the Central Command is there?" Song Su took out a map from his pocket. "According to the map we've explored so far, the central area is the volcanic landform. Basically, the Central Command of the Magic Circle, or the Magic Tower, is in the central area." ZD added, "The operation of the Magic Circle requires a huge amount of energy. The master of the island may extract the surrounding elements, or he may use the magic pool in the Magic Tower. If there's a problem, the place with the most severe turbulence is likely to be the Central Command or the Magic Tower." Heiwan frowned. "This is all speculation. You have no evidence." Zhonggu nodded and smiled. "Without evidence, who would be able to take it out? But this is enough for us to take a gamble. Do we have any other way?" Everyone was silent again. "No." Heiwan said, "We can wait for rescue. Attacking the center of the island is too crazy. The volcano is erupting there, and there's the magical beast army along the way. We might even die halfway." "No, we'll use a boat." Zhen Jin's voice came. "This will save us a lot of time and travel." Heiwan was stunned. Shisua's eyes lit up and he shouted, "That's right, we can repair the boat. Although we can't sail, there's an inland river in front of us. There's no wind or waves. Volcanic clouds cover the sky above us, and it won't even rain." Zhenjin continued, "In fact, even if we wait for rescue, there will be hidden dangers. Don't forget those companions who died in beast form. We're likely to have been eroded by the environment and fallen for the master of the island. Can the means of a mighty person like him be easily neutralized? Can we just find a priest and purify it? Also, he played with us and humiliated us. Are we just going to let this go? Just now, the Xingming Emperor gave me a revelation. Zhen Jin pointed at the river. Everyone was stunned again. Could it be that this river was created by the Xingming Emperor? No wonder we didn't die. God's will is unfathomable. Divine Knight. Sang Su bowed deeply to Zhen Jin and sighed. This may be your path to becoming a hero. My lord Zhen Jin. Almost everyone present felt their scalp tingle. They felt like they were witnessing history. If the hero's epic was sung in the future, would they also have a part in it? Zhen Jin looked around and confirmed that the people's minds had changed. He firmly ordered loudly, "It's decided. Do your best to repair the boat, cremate our companions, and collect as much food, water, weapons, and so on. We will set sail, we will go to the center of the island." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.